Well, hello everyone. I'm just Santa's elf today, filling up some bullets. So I figured I would pop on here and see what everybody was doing, and if you guys had anything interesting going on. Hello, M and J. Hello, Tim and Hannah. Hello, Grayson, Robert, James, DC. Everybody's here. Hey, Chris. Yeah, I'm bored, brother. I'm just filling bullets up. Filling up bullets. So we're going to open up the chat real quick. Let me copy the invite over here. And if anybody wants to join in, just come on in. We'll just start with this part. Lee doesn't even know I'm live. He probably got the notification the same time you guys did. So we're going to pin that to the top. There we go. Anybody wanting to come on in? Come on in. Hey, Michael. And I'm just making bullets one at a time here. One at a time. That's the fun of being a small businessman, right? Doing your thing. So, what you guys up to? Anything? Getting ready for Christmas? Getting your shopping all done? And okay, that'll be good, Tim. I'm just doing my thing here, brother. My day was all right. Not much happening really. I burned a few leaves, raked a few leaves. Haven't done anything with the coyote. The guy that was going to come out and put the traps out didn't show up today. So I did sell some honey. Someone stopped in and bought a little bit of honey. Not a lot, but they did buy a jar. So that was pretty good. I watched some videos today too. I watched a little bit of football, not a lot, but a little bit. And now I decided to start filling out some of these because I got some people wanting to for me to bring their order to Hive Life, and then I'm bringing extra to Hive Life. Hey, WMD. So if they sell more than what they have, I can just go restock it out of what I got, right? Good stuff. Try to get the name out there a little bit when we're in Tennessee, and try to get that going. And I'm going to have to reorder some more Apis soon because I'm running out of Bioactivator, which went on a run last week. This past week, someone ordered some Bioactivator out of Texas, and they ordered more than I normally sell. Most people aren't buying the... You still got a half an hour left at the market. All right, well, I'm sure in a half an hour we'll still be here, sir. That's our typical MO anyway. And I'm just sitting here one vial at a time. I got the ones, I got a bunch here, but I'm just stocking up, right? We're going to stock them up. And it's really, these are really fascinate me. I mean, these are the ones I did on the show the last time, and they're good to go. They smell good. It's a little bit of QC check, right? So I check them as I take them back out of here into this to make sure they're okay as I'm filling them up. 12 inches of snow. Whoa. There is a beekeeping simulator game. It's called Boss Beak. Or Beak Boss. Hold on. I actually have it on my computer if y'all want to see what it looks like. At least I had it. I have to search it out. Let me see if I can search it out. There you go. Boss Beak Beekeeping Simulator app. Sorry you killed the bees. Well, I mean, it is a beekeeping video game. So, I mean, yeah, you can get it on Steam for $5. So if you're into beekeeping video games and simulators, it takes a minute to figure it out. I mean, I played it for a little. I haven't played it that much, but I do own it. So it is a thing. And you basically have to level up your hives. Do I have to click something? Is that... Uh-oh. Let's load my beehives, my bee colonies here. They probably all swarm by now because I haven't played it in a while. So, this is what it looks like. And, of course, I'm filling, so not paying a whole lot of attention. But you see all my hives need attention, right? Well, the thing is, there's not very many good instructions on the game. So it's, so like you got to look at your hive, right? Looks like it's got a good queen bee. What does it need? Does it need a short super? Let me see. Can I zoom in? Oh, this one needs... Let's go to this one. What's it need? Installed a short super. Frames. That's locked stuff. But anyway, it's kind of like a sim where you make money and you see the bees going back and forth. I don't know what's wrong with this one. I can't read it. That's my problem. It's too small. Everything is too small. Manual delivery price. I sold the honey. I don't know what's wrong with it. Or is it the net? Good, 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 good. It says everything's good. Installed. Let's install a super. Do we have one? That's what I'm saying. It's hard to play. No stats, woodenware. So that's the whole thing. You just don't know what to do. There's no good directions. Hey, I just got rewarded a queen bee. So it looks like everything I should be able to install. There we go. Basic honey processing. On ARC. So how do we product modify? That's it. Oh, there you go. I got a reward. So let's see here. We don't really want a new hive, do we? Let's do a new hive. Yeah, see, it wants me to pop a new hive up. So when you pop a new hive like this, you can put one like right there. And then you got to start placing stuff in it from down here. So if you go to like this colony over here, you should have stuff down here, or you got to buy, right? So insights info, pull down stats coming soon. So yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out. That's the whole thing. Don't know if you're making money. Got a help wanted sign up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. New hive. We could hire. Let's hire this beekeeper if we can. Inspect this hive. It won't let me hire her. But you can click on the beekeeper, right? Let's see. Come on, beekeeper. What's going on? Where'd all my beekeepers go? Home for the day? It won't let me. Oh, he wants a coffee break. It won't let you do it. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's the whole deal. So it says I got queens and stuff, and I've already forgotten how to do the upgrade. So there you go. That's that. We'll quit that. So that's that. We'll remove that. So it is kind of difficult. Hey, Lee. And I got to mute my Facebook. So everything's pinned, guys, if you want to come join in. Otherwise, this might be a very short stream. I just thought you guys might want to hang out and talk, see what's going on. See if there's anything you guys. Hey, there we go. Hey, Chris.
Hey, I just can't see chat when I'm doing it this way.
Oh, yeah. Well, you should be able. Well, if you're on your phone, you won't be able to. Probably. Yeah. But if you're on, you should be able to hit comments if you're on the computer at the top and at least see what's being said in the chat. But
yeah, I'm gonna switch my computer over to it.
It's pretty Andy coming on tonight. Hope not. Not if I see him. No suspects. I think everybody's modded just about in here. Except, well, why aren't they modded? Why isn't it? It's weird. Why is it not letting me do that? Maybe it's something they have.
I got it up now. I can.
It was
I guess Lee knows you're on now.
Yeah, I see him in the chat, but it looks like, am I frozen up on YouTube or something? Because it looks like it's way behind.
Well, it's always slower on the computer than it is on the phone.
Yeah, but it's usually not. I'm still playing the video game over there.
Oh.
And that's been a minute. So either that or I accidentally paused it or something. Maybe that's what's going on. Yeah, that's what's happening.
No, today was my don't do nothing day.
All right, let me see. Don't do nothing day. There you go. I'm trying to add some moderators here. And let me see. Okay, Donnie, there we go. So yeah, I'm just trying to get ahead of the curve here for the conference, and this is only part of it, right? So once you make the bullet, I got to envelope them, label them, and hey, Lisa, we're just hanging out tonight. Not much. Hey, Larimore. So yeah, I had to actually unhook the bottling line today because one of my daughters wanted to make a present on the laser, so I made the present for her to give to somebody. But it's so right now I don't have the bottling line hooked up. I can't have them both hooked up at the same time, unfortunately. Well, I could. I just have to have a different arrangement in here, a different setup, if you will. But so obviously it's a cold day today, so not much on the bees today, right?
Not over here.
As me. Usually Saturday and Sunday would be my preferred day to be out and in messing with the bees. And just not much going on. I treated them, I want to say it was Wednesday or Thursday. And with oxalic acid. Or was it Tuesday? I don't know. It was earlier in the week. Maybe it might have even been last weekend now. It was one of the days where it was cold and getting ready to rain. And I went ahead and treated them with oxalic acid. I'm not very good at keeping my dates on the calendar, days I do stuff. Really, it's a Bob issue, not a beekeeping issue. It's just how I've always been, right? When I want to go do something, I just go do it. And I try to keep in my mind when I did it last time, when I need to do it next time. But
yeah, it's like all the days run into each other, don't they?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. And so really that's it, man. That's all that's been going on with that. I think my son's starting to take interest in the swarm lure business aspect side of things, because he sure started asking me a bunch of questions today about it. So we'll see. Maybe my son will come on board and help me do some of this crap. And, really in a weekend, I could do everything I needed if I had more help, right?
More hands.
More hands to do it. That's it. My daughter said she was coming by today to put labels on bottles, but she didn't show today. So it is what it is. And Spanky's going to give me crap already. I know, because I didn't call him. See, he's already chuckling in the background. He knows.
I tried to call you.
I took a nap, bro. That's what I did before this. I was in bed.
Every time I call you, it goes voicemail.
Not every time.
Every time I call anybody, it goes voicemail.
There's Charles in charge.
That's why I text him.
Yeah. No, my brother's the equipment operator. DC. So, Charlie.
Yeah.
How's your
background?
How's your computer doing?
I'm good. I'm getting it worked on right now. I mean, I'm on it right now, the new one.
Nice.
Everything.
I almost did an impulse buy, but I didn't. When everybody was looking at cameras and everything,
Right.
then everybody's been talking about these microphones and all this fancy schmancy stuff. Then I got off of here yesterday, and magically, lo and behold, Zoom's 4K webcam You know, they make the Zoom microphone, lapel mics, and all that, but it's like a GoPro, but it's made by Zoom, and it's got 4K video, which my GoPro does, but you know, you would think it would have better audio because it's made by Zoom, and supposedly it makes it easier to sync up the audio on your video files. But you know,
DC,
No,
that's not my design.
do what?
I put-
Thank you.
Oh, I was DC's comment. He saw somebody in Turkey using the cathedral hive. That's not my design.
Well, cathedral hives were a thing, but it's
Yeah.
not your design.
Yeah, I didn't invent that design.
You just invented it cooler.
I
I
don't
watched
know about that.
I watched a thing today where people are 3D printing Glocks and stuff like that, weapons. So they don't have any serial number on them. They're made with the filament, right? So it's kind of interesting. I never thought about that till somebody, who was it on the comment last night that said, could you 3D print them a Glock?
Well, you can, but the barrel will give way after a few bullets anyway.
Well,
They're good for one or two, but that's it.
I mean, but if you were using it for something nefarious, you wouldn't need more than one or two.
You just go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get you some pipe. I mean,
We're gonna get banned off YouTube stuff we talked about on here.
you know, everybody panics over new technology and they forget about the fact that for
They
hundreds
make
of years
pipe
we've had
machines.
the technology to make the weapons the old ways, and if anybody wanted to do anything nefarious, they know how to make weapons using stuff in stores. It's just that nobody thinks about it. They worry about new stuff.
They're worried about the new stuff, but
Yeah.
look,
That looks good, Charlie.
Yeah, Kraft mac and cheese.
always catch them in dinner.
This is a late
been-
dinner.
I've been, I don't know, working on this computer and trying to get
Charlie's a
the,
busy man.
huh?
You're a busy man.
Yeah, look, the biggest problem right now is I got this Filmora 11 and it was, my files were on an external drive and it was registering on the old computer as drive F. And now everything on this computer is drive E. And it's like, all right, how am I supposed to change, direct that program to go to those files and stuff? And I've been trying, and I was also trying to get, this thing's got 2 hard drives in it, trying to get the 2 hard drives mirrored, and I got that done tonight.
You can rename the hard drives.
Yeah, you can do that.
You can.
Yeah,
change-
I have a C and a
Yeah, I
D.
was trying to redirect the program, but I guess if I rename the hard drive, it would work better, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Just
It would be
don't
easier to
go in
do.
there and accidentally delete everything on the hard drive.
No.
You sound like you speak from experience, Spanky.
No, I don't, but I know people who have.
You can see where it. I think if it was taking an excessively long amount of time, I would hit cancel.
I work over there where somebody had a couple of computers doing firmware updates. Said it was flashing the firmware, and they went, "Oh, we don't use Flash Player no more. Let me just turn that off."
Because it said flash on it.
Yep, because it's flashing the firmware, and it bricked 2 brand new computers.
Oh man.
Oh, we don't use Flash Player no more. They knew just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, see, I use one of my drives strictly for my games. This way it doesn't clog up my main drive when I'm trying to go on, searching the web or something.
what type of games do you play, sir?
Well, right now I'm playing Ark. That's my game of choice.
I have not.
But I have
played.
others.
I do like to play World of Warships, which is a free basic game. But I mean, the graphics are good and everything. But I don't know if it's
Yeah.
the TV in me or what, but I do like to play that game. And I used
Yeah, I like
to
PC.
too much money anymore to be paying for a video game. Charlie's
Nah, I don't
in
like. Charlie's in Lululand.
Lululand looking at his computer like, it's like, new screen.
It is nice as far as being a big screen. I'm looking at like the position of the camera here. I'm looking down on the screen as I'm seeing myself
Right.
instead of the camera looking directly at me, I think.
Well,
Oh, Charlie.
I look all over the place. So I got to sit back and look straight at the screen. And then the camera kind of looks at me, but I never look at it. I mean, I'm looking everywhere else pretty much. And
Right.
This is my setup.
Thanks.
You got your camera on top, or
I got my camera on top of mine. Yeah.
right?
I don't know. Chris, where's your camera? Is it obviously not on top?
It's on my cell phone.
And you're just casting to the computer? Or
Yep.
you got okay.
But that's my screen. That's 56-inch.
That's a big screen.
Man, I got this 32, and I was like,
No, that's
it's
the
taking
size
me-
of my other one.
It's taken me a while to get used to this thing, and now it's not as bad as I thought.
Now you go somewhere and use another computer, you'd be like, what the hell? Can't even
Especially
see
when
it.
I use people's laptops. I'm like, I can't even see this graphics.
Can't even see them. I have that. I mean, I've got two screens on this one because I've got my third screen is out there on another computer now. So, but
It says on the backgrounds that I can't add any more backgrounds unless I sign on or sign up or something like that.
Yeah.
for StreamYard,
Yeah, I don't quite get
Well,
that.
you know what you do, Charlie? You just make a folder on your computer named Stream Backgrounds. Put all your pictures in there.
and then you can just remove
Switch
one,
whenever you want them.
pick whichever one you want to, and
I say remove one, put another one on. Okay. Yeah, okay.
remove the crappy ones they got in there.
I tried to do that and just didn't quite want to.
It wouldn't let you do it.
Wouldn't let me.
Yeah,
do
sometimes those
that.
are hard written inside those files, so you can't get them out.
Right.
Nice brick wall.
He's just another brick in the wall.
Yeah.
So how long do we got now?
I didn't know that this was a background when I seen Yappy and they were saying about him playing the piano in the back.
StreamYard background, yeah.
Yeah, it was a StreamYard background.
So how many days do we have this Hive Life now?
I don't know.
3 weeks?
We got
3 weeks from today, we'll be there, right?
well, you figure it'd be 3 weeks, but we've got 14, 15, 16. I got 17 days before we leave.
17 days. Now, see, I wasn't planning to bring any swarm lure to the conference. And now I've got people saying, can you just bring it to the conference? So I won't have to pay for shipping up to Illinois. I'm like, really? It's not going to be that much shipping for what you actually ordered. I mean, I understand $10 is $10 or whatever, but it's like,
Well, 10.
and then he's like, well, if you bring more, you can actually sell it in our booth. And I'm like, yeah, but I already got people selling it up there. So I don't want to compete with the people that have purchased it, right? So that's not fair to them. They purchased it to resell. So why would I compete directly against them? Now, what I will do is take some up there. And if they
Samples.
run out, then I've got it on hand, and we'll see. Next year will be a little bit different, I think, because next year maybe I'll have enough sold this year that I can have my own booth up there, or share a booth with somebody, or who knows? You just don't know what the year will bring. By this
Well, I
time,
can't can't wait to get it started though, because I want to try yours out with all the other ones that I've got bought. I want to do a comparison with all of them.
It'll be a very difficult video series.
Speaking
Ask me
of,
how. Oh, it came today?
yeah, I got a present I was going to open up.
Go ahead and open it up, sir. And
I gotta find which way to cut.
Yeah, Grayson. Yeah, that it is a new background. I have several pictures of mine. That's what the hives that are past the building are. I wrap them in carpet for a wind block.
you know, with like I've done the side-by-side comparison, but I did Lemongrass and Swarm Commander when I did it. And
DC.
And I didn't catch anything with either one of them, to be honest with you, at that point. There's so much that goes into catching a swarm that it's hard to definitively say. Even if you had 3 colonies side by side, all on the same tree at the same level, there's no telling what lure is actually bringing them. If it's the lure, if it's the comb, if it's the propolis, you just really can't say at that point, because then if you have 3 of them on the same tree, is it the direction that colony was facing? Why the bees liked it? It's just really, there's a lot of variables that can play in. And
Now imagine if you had a plastic box without any bee scent in it, and you tried your swarm lure to test it.
yeah, I mean, it's always. Did I just?
Yeah, I built 5 new swarm catching boxes. So
Oh, nice.
I've got 3 different lures that I'm going to try.
Are they different? Are they different sizes? I mean, is it like the not just the nuke box? Is it like a taller nuke box? Is it a legit?
No, I made them 24 by 24 because of they like to have a bigger thing to go into, and I just made the inside frame so they'd work.
Yeah, I think, what do they say, Charlie? The size that they like. Do you know? For swarm trap?
I've
I
heard it,
forgot
but
the dimensions.
I don't remember.
I know it's like a nuke box, but taller. Somebody in the chat probably knows right off the gate.
Yeah, it's like 2 nuke boxes put together, but one I built, I just went on. I just built a box. Didn't know nothing about swarms or nothing. I just built a box and put it out in my backyard, and next thing I know, had bees in it.
Hey, that works.
Didn't even made some homemade frames that didn't even work in a regular hive.
Hey, if it catches the bees and you can get the bees out of there, it's all good.
Well, that's my first one I lost.
Look at that right there. Gonna
There
wrestle
you
me some bees.
We'll make Spanky big for a minute. Got some Swarm Wrangler.
Yeah, and some bullets.
Oh, I'm sorry, Swarm Rustler. I got to catch myself. Got some bullets.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome, sir. Hey, that's the least I could do after all the stuff y'all send me. I got hives and hive stands, SD card holders, guiders, a guide for my bottle filling machine. I mean, a label machine. I'm like, yeah, here's some swarm lure, Spanky. Give it a shot. Bob's getting techie. No. Save those first batch. They may be worth something someday. It could be. The plastic bottle it came in. The next labels will be different than those labels, though, to be honest with you. They're going to have different lettering on them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get this one tray filled up, guys. As soon as I get the rest of this tray filled up, I'll see, you're not even right for that. I could eat that whole thing right now.
Well, you don't know what that is.
Oh, I bet you I do. Is that the caramel apple?
Yeah, that's the apple vodka caramel chews.
See, that's the kind of stuff you put out and don't tell people it's got alcohol in it.
Yeah.
It made Christmas merrier for everyone.
Yeah, them things are good.
Oh, you ain't even right. Look at you.
You ain't even right.
You are not right.
You never heard your teacher say if you didn't bring enough for everybody?
Oh, there's enough in there. You gonna come get your son?
Hey,
Come get your son.
he's only 3 hours away from us.
Yeah. You want to drive down here? Come right on ahead.
Actually, I'll be driving up.
Now we can leave at 11, be there by 4 in the morning, turn
Yeah,
around by
Spanky's about 10 hours from me, I think.
7 for Waffle House.
I might be back in time for church.
You'd be walking into church with a pocket full of alcoholic candies, passing them
Right?
out.
Hand them out.
Hey, these things are good. You need to try them. Be handed out, had the whole congregation to be tore up.
That'd be my luck.
So, what's your thoughts on slatted bottom racks? Jason at Bohemia Bees is big on them.
I've seen a lot of videos here recently about them things.
Yeah, I did too. You saw the Better Be one that came out?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was Better Be. And it's it's an old idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to know about them?
Well, nothing. I mean, they
I
better
haven't
be
used them.
explain what they're for, but are they really worth all that?
Jason swears by them. So you put them on the bottom board, right?
Yep.
And then you put your box on top of it. And all it is basically a shim that's got slats across the bottom of it.
Yep.
And it's like a windbreak. And it does give them a little bit more room off the bottom. So
Now,
they say you don't lose as much temperature through the bottom of it. And it works good for, I guess, in the summer and the winter, because in the summer it helps keep from bearding out front, which is why I said, well, you remember how much bearding I had in the summertime. So that's why I was thinking about getting some. But then I'm like, but if I get some and the things are $30, then I'm $600 in to make the change to every one of my colonies.
the thing of it is, if you think about it, they were developed when we were using solid bottom boards.
And I still use solid bottom boards, yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is that it gives it that extra space so the air can flow, and they do have more space to hang down. Whereas, and I think that kind of keeps the.
They got a bunch of claims that they claim that the bees make use of for them, not just in terms of space, but also there's the claims of, well, your queen is going to is going to be able to lay all the way to the very bottom of your brood frame, so they're going to draw
Right.
that out all the way.
Well,
There's
what-
also
I mean-
the claim of the bearding and the spacing of that.
What-
Bigger swarms will move into your boxes if you use them. There's all these claims.
But what makes them say that it lets the queen lay all the way to the bottom? Because
Sunlight.
Well, it raises that brood frame up higher up into the
Yep.
box and keeps the cold air away from it.
Not just air, sunlight.
the sunlight.
Yep, sunlight shines through your entrance.
But if you have a entrance reducer on, there's very little sunlight that's going to come through there if you got the small thing on there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Ian Stepler and look how he has his boxes made, he doesn't have that 9 inches of open space for the bees to fly in there. He normally has about 3 inches or so, and that's it for an entrance. I'm not sure whether I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
they don't. I mean, they don't do an entrance reducer or anything, And I understand at his scale, and even at my scale and your scale, and that's probably one of the number one things that I would say to a new beekeeper out of the gate. You know how they say measure twice and cut once, right, Charlie?
Yeah.
So figure out what you want to run before you ever start buying bees. And I say that because once you get to a point and you're like, you know what? I need slotted bottom boards, and now I'm buying them for 30 colonies. You know, that's
Instead of one at a time as you're building.
$600 to $900 at one pop to replace.
Well, it's like there's a gal. She was at a conference I was at. She's out in Missouri, I think. I can't think of what her name is right now, but anyway, she did grow up on a commercial bee. By just listening to her in 5 minutes, I said, "This girl, you know, she has a PhD and all this kind of stuff."
Right.
And I'm listening to her, and I'm like, "This girl didn't learn this in college. She
Right.
grew up with this." And sure enough, she had a picture of I'll tell you her name. Mrs. Megan Milbroth. She had a picture of her with her dad with one of them old aluminum hard hats, you know, and they put a veil over top of that thing for her when she was about 10 years old.
Like the dude from University of Guelph.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. But anyway, what I was getting at, her talk was about whether you were, you know, where are you going with your bees? You know, as far as, are you going to be a sideliner, commercial person, and all that? And she says, you know, if you're moving your bees and stuff like that, you know, you're not going to use telescoping covers, inner covers. You're going to do migratory. You're not going to use bottom boards. You're going to use pallet system. And you save yourself a ton of equipment and expense, but you have to kind of
know that ahead of time.
Figure that out really early on, you know, what direction you're going to go with your bees and that kind of stuff.
I think most of us start out the same way. You know, I think I'm going to get a couple of hives, see how it goes, right? And then before you know it, you're like, well, hey, I had this set up on these first two, and that worked good. So let me duplicate that 50 times. And now I've got 50 colonies. But if something comes along that you need to change something at that point, then you're almost.
Well, it's like there's one friend of mine. He has bees up in Pennsylvania, and he got into the licensed polystyrene hives, and he's got I think it's 10 frame hives, and he's got at least 30 to 40 of them.
Right.
And that's what he completely runs, all licensed hives. Of course, he made that decision early on to go to the insulated hive.
Right.
And like I tried the one, and it's like, you know, I'm too late in the game. I got too many wooden boxes sitting here, a lot of money put into them, and it's like I got to just, you know, keep what I got. And in a lot of ways, I have that one license, but I didn't put it in production over the winter this year. I'm like, okay, well, it's a 6 frame instead of a 5 frame, and trying to, you know, to make it work in relationship to all the rest of the stuff I have. And I do well with, you know, 5 frame nukes through the winter. And of course, I've got them behind that barn to keep a windbreak off of them.
Right.
And so, you know, it just and then another thing with a license, I mean, when I'm vaporizing, I'd have to stick the vaporizer in that front entrance. Well, you got to be very careful not to touch any of that because it's plastic.
And you're going to melt it.
Yeah. Well, I've already touched a little bit of it with that nozzle, and it melted it, you know, quicker. And I had to see, what did I do? I took like a paint stick or something and kind of used that as a safety guide where it would rest on that.
Right.
But anyway, I mean,
but with that, I mean,
depends on how big you're going to go. I mean, I got up to almost 40 some hives, and it's like I'm by myself, and it's like I don't have I usually work a half a day on Saturday. So and then summertime, we farm a little bit still, and even though my son has pretty much took that over, and
Well,
I it just got too much, so I backed it down. I fairly comfortable at 32. I mean, it don't sound like much, but
oh no, it's a ton.
you
I learned
know,
that this year.
but I got now I have a dozen honey hives for production, and then I have 20 nukes, and actually right now I got about 26 hives because I had to use some of my nukes to re-queen some of those production hives because they went queenless on me for some reason.
Right, so you probably end up doing like me, just merged a whole nuke in with the nuke.
Oh yeah. That's what they're there for.
And that way you're giving them some defenders when she goes marching in there.
Yeah, you just paper her in and be done with it.
Well, with the like you said, for you and I right now, I don't have as many colonies as you right now because if most of you haven't figured out, there's a stair step effect to beekeeping, right? And the stair step is kind of like you start out with X number, right? Then, and then the first winter, some of those make it. So you take a step back and then you do a split. So you gain a bunch of colonies and then, guess what? You got to merge. So you start stepping it back, right? To make sure they make it through winter. And then some of those don't. So you step back and then you split them again. So you might go from 10, 20, back to 15, up to 30, back to 25, right? You just kind of stair step
In
back.
the spring, if I go through them honey hives and I got to equalize, well, there's my brood for my increase in my nukes.
Right.
And
I
I'll do
don't see
it.
Ed's picture. I see Ed in there. He is. Hold on. I'm coming, Ed. Hey, Ed.
Hey guys.
Hey, what's up?
I had both of my fingers full, so I couldn't.
I'm
click
doing all right, man.
Yeah, and we're just kind of talking about the, how when you implement a new piece of equipment with your bees, that it's exponential, right? So the cost is exponential. Now, again, that depends. Charlie, if you were going to 100 colonies and you wanted to start using slatted bottom boards, well, then you would just, every time you increased your equipment, you would just buy a slotted bottom board, right? And then eventually you'd either phase those older colonies out or you would buy some extra to add it in. And then it's not as big a deal. But if you're at 30 and you want to stay at 30 or you just make a simple change, it could be anything from...
it's like I've been used to using top high feeders. Well, then when my plans were to have 30 nukes because that's what I've got enough to do right now.
Right.
And I had 10 honey hives, so there was 40 hives. And I mean, I pretty much got up to that, and I have to have a system, I guess you would just say, So I got to the point where one weekend I worked on all the nukes. Then the next weekend I worked on all the 10 frame hives. And at the time I had 10 frames of my own or 10 hives of my own, 10 production hives. And then I had a friend of mine, he was has since passed away here about a year ago. Anyway, he had a couple hives over there and I would drive over there and manage. And I'm like, after 2 or 3 years of that, it's like, you know what? I wouldn't want to have an out yard, no way, shape, or form, because you always forget, take stuff, or you think everything is good. And when you get there, everything is different.
Then you end up having to make another trip back to the main yard.
Yeah, and around here we got traffic's not real bad, but it's bad enough. Now, DC, I see. What was his question here? He started enjoying himself about 10 hives. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends.
Well, what I found is
where do you want to be at? What's comfortable for you, and how much time you've got it. And see, that's a question that I ask a lot of people. Like I asked Greg Burns, how do you manage? and they give you this philosophical answer. Every one of them does.
I don't want that. I want to know exactly.
You know, and it's like, well, you know, you got to treat the yard or treat the apiary as a group instead of a single hive. And I says, that don't tell me nothing.
Don't tell you
Absolutely
how
nothing. You know, and it's like, no, I want to be able to go. You got 30 hives sitting there. And it's like, okay, you know, they'll say, well, don't look for, you know, yeah, I know that. I don't look for the queen. If I got eggs and larvae, okay, I'm done. I don't need to worry about that. But you still have to go through them hives, I believe, to where you kind of have to know how much brood you got in them. And, you know, it's like the last 2 years, I haven't had any swarms. I learned real quick. You go to single brood chamber management. And when you learn that technique and you learn to equalize throughout the honey season, which for me, it's April, May, and June, up to June. I mean, let's see. Yeah, I mean, April, May, and June. Who's that?
That's Tim. What'd you say, Tim?
That's Tim.
He's freezing up, I think.
Yeah, but is he?
Well, yeah, see, I have nothing really to compare so much on is because everything I have is captured swarms so far. I have an intention to get a breeded, you know, a package of breeded with a bred queen.
Yeah.
You know, close to like what close. I don't know how close you can get to pure stock nowadays, but you know, like Caucasian, for instance, they'll be all Caucasian, and see how those do compared to what I've been doing with my swarms. You know, I've got a long journey still ahead. I know that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what we're, you know, Ed, what we're talking about is when you implement something into your yard, as far as how you're going to run your actual colonies, right? You got to kind of know, which none of us do when we start. I don't think, you know, maybe Ian Stepler said, you know what, I've got all this land on my family's farm. I'm just going to be a commercial beekeeper and we're going to make 1,500 colonies, and that's what we're going to run and do it that way. You know, most of us when we start out don't have those resources, right? We don't have that land. We don't have, we don't have the stuff that to do that with. So we start out and we say, just like you got a few colonies, right? And then you're like, but we never stop to really say, well, maybe Brian Coper has, because he says he only wants to have 10 or whatever. And, we never really stop and say, well, where do we want to be? Where, kind of like the New Year's resolution of beekeeping, how many colonies do we want to have? How many can we effectively work? And that all comes back to how much money you're going to have to spend to scale up to that level, right? And so as you're scaling, if you make a change to whatever equipment you use, you got to multiply that equipment by the number of colonies that you already have going, right?
Yeah, so that depends. Now, if you're using a device that you thought you'd try out and see how it worked, and it doesn't work quite the way you think it should, then that comes out of it.
Right, but you would take it back off, but you've already spent the money on that one item, right? So you just trialed it.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, slatted bottom boards, I got to have them. There's no other way around it. I got to have them. I've got 50 colonies. So now I've got to take that $30 bill or however much they are and multiply that times 50. Now you just spent $1,500, right?
Yeah.
So that happens very quickly. Or when you say, hey, guys, speaking of guys, hey, Tim, welcome back.
Much better.
Yeah, it's much better this time.
Yeah, Bob, that's what I did with my my screened oil bottom boards that I use. I tried the first one, that worked out great. So I bought more for my other ones.
And you just started that one, but now every time you buy a new colony, you're going to buy that piece to go with it, right? So that makes sense. but if you're retrofitting, like if you say, hey, you know what, I really need I don't know, Guardian Hive Beetle entrance reducers, and those things are $10, right? Well, you just take the $10 bill and start shelling out for every colony you already have. I mean, you're looking at, $300, or just to replace one little item on the colony. So,
And what happens if one breaks or two breaks?
yeah, then you're calling Spanky to have him 3D print you some.
What- hey, Bob.
Red light technology, don't you know
Yeah,
it?
Charlie.
That kit, is that a
I don't know them.
Kremlin?
I don't know
From the
them. They
Kremlin.
haven't said anything bad, so I guess we got to let them go till something bad happens.
Okay. Well, like last night. I think the best thing for anybody that wants to know how big they want to go is the question is, it's not the number of hives, is, like I said, why did I choose 30 nukes? I chose that because I wanted to sell 20 nukes every spring.
Right.
And I wanted to have 10 nukes for myself as far as backup goes. And that's why those numbers came about, because my thing is I want to have around 800 to 1,000 pounds of honey, which I want to go from one season to the next without running out of honey. So I know 10 or 12 hives can give me that of honey production.
All right. So if you
And
want
then the
30
nuke,
nukes, how many extra nuke boxes how many nuke boxes do you have? You say you want 30. How many do you actually have? I know you have more than 30.
oh yeah,
I've got a whole pallet of them outside. Y'all seen my pallet of nukes, not including the ones that actually have
I got at least 60 boxes, as far as 5 over 5, because that's the way I run them. Actually, probably more than that. I have mediums and I've got deeps, because when I started, the women were into it heavily and I would sell them mediums. And I also run mediums in my honey production. So usually when I overwinter a nuke in mediums, it's 3 medium boxes. So I've got about 35 or 40 medium boxes. I've got the same amount. I actually went out and bought, 20 or more nuke boxes a couple years ago, deeps, because I could see the trending I keep a record of all the stuff of my sales, and I could see the trend going back to deep frame nukes for sales. So I had to go out and buy more deep boxes in order to meet that need.
So I called it this year the summer swell, right? So my apiary is at 30, but in the summer, my apiary swell to 60. I had 60 boxes that had queens and bees in it.
Are we talking 2 framers, 5 framers, and
all
10
the above?
framers?
The whole mix.
That's the way it is with me. I mean, in the summertime when I'm doing queens, I'll have 20 to 32 frame mating boxes out there on top of all that. So I mean, I'll swell up to 50 or 60 boxes.
So,
but the 2 framers don't take, you drop a queen in there and I don't really have to come back for 2 weeks,
right,
to see her lay. And now you'll go through the hive and, it's 2 frames for me. So if there's a lot of food on the frame, they're good for 2 weeks, or I'll put a little pint jar on top and feed them if they need any feed. But it doesn't take me too long to go through them hives, 2 frames, it's zip, you're done.
Well, yeah, it doesn't, I mean, not for time, but when you start talking about expansion, and let's say, Ed, how many colonies you got right now, Ed?
I only have 2 at the moment.
Okay, so you've got 2 colonies. How many do you want to get to this year?
This year, I'm looking between. I'm hoping to get between 4 to 6, depending on how things work, and potential swarms. I don't catch these swarms.
Okay, let's take swarms out of the equation right now, because that's kind of like a anomaly, right? You don't know if you're going to catch a swarm. You may not.
So like an if and maybe type of deal, right?
Right. So if you're from 2 to 6, you're basically tripling actually tripling in size, right? So
Yep.
2, 4, 6. So if you're running 10 frame, so now you got to get 4 more bottom boards, right? 4 more covers, 4 more deep boxes, 40 frames. So you start doing the math, and that's what I did this year. I went and I'm like, okay, we're expanding, and I went and bought all these boxes, right? Deep boxes, medium boxes, and you buy the boxes, you're like, wow, that was $900, and then you're like, oh hell, I don't have frames to fill all these boxes. Now I'm buying cases of frames, not 1 or 2 frames, cases of frames, right? So then you're like, well, now I'm $600.
Cases of foundation.
No, well, that's why I went to plastic frames. So I went to the plastic frames, and now it's like, well, now I've got $650 tied up in new frames. Now I still have some that never got used this year, but it's the way that it just everything is exponential, right? So you go, so now I got 25, let's say 25 colonies. Well, next year, what are you going to do? Either you want to stay at 25 or you need to split them. So now I need another 25 colonies, right? Or I need to start selling. Either way, you got to have now it's like, well, now I need nuke boxes, because if I split them, I need to split off into nukes to keep my main colonies small enough to where they won't swarm, right? And I can sell these other nukes off. Correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, how it exponentially just kind of.
It does. I mean, but you're also, you have to know where you're going to go with your bees. You know what you're going to do. I mean, my goal. I got three incomes here. I got honey, nukes, and queens. And now queens, I didn't do much last year because of the rain and weather conditions and stuff. And I seemed like I just ran out of time. I think I did 60 some queens, and that was about it. And, nukes was a learning experience for me. You know, here I've been at it for 14 years, and I like a system on how to do certain things. And, a lot of folks will just do 1 5-frame box of bees, which is easy, you know, just transfer them to the cardboard and you're done. But I'm coming out of winter with these overwinter nukes, and they're 2 boxes deep, and you're going to have 5 frames of bees and brood and whatever, and the queen, and then you got another 5 frames in the bottom or wherever they may be. And I finally learned that take your 5-frame queen excluder, find the queen, make up the nuke in that wooden box with the right amount of food and brood and feed and everything else, and then put that queen excluder in between them. So now your queen in the box you want to sell is up on top. And then my problem I had this year was you had them 95-degree days. I was trying to box them in cardboard, in which doesn't have the best of ventilation, even though some of my boxes had big screen holes in them. And now I finally had a system where you leave them in the wooden box. You got the queen excluder in there. You got her isolated, and you tell the buyer to be here, let's say at 6:30 or something, and you pull that box off, transfer everything over to the cardboard and say, okay, take it home. And they've equalized the bees out as far as how much population there is.
So let me understand you. I
overheated I overheated like 3 nukes this year because I put too many bees, being too generous, in those cardboard nuke boxes. They were dead by the time they got home.
So what you're telling me is, if I go out to my yard in the spring,
yeah,
and I've got a 5-frame nuke that's overwintered.
Well, it'd be 5 over 5. 5 over 5. Now, down where you're at, you probably can overwinter with just what, 5 frames?
Yeah, I can overwinter a single 5-frame. So
All right, well then you're golden. All you gotta do is go out there, pull all the bees out of the box, put them in a cardboard box, and you're done.
Yeah, but I could literally go out in the spring and move those bees to the top, right, with the queen.
Yeah.
Couldn't I just put a queen excluder in, move the bees to the top, and let them like checkerboard them, put the queen excluder in? Would they start making a queen in the bottom box?
You're in a 10 frame box now?
No, 5 frame. Like 5 over. If I moved it to a 5 over 5,
Yeah.
right? So I got the queen in the box. You said move the queen to the top so you can just pull that off. But what if I checkerboarded a frame or 2 down and put her up top and then let them
Then in
equal-
that situation, you would use a double screen board and you would break the pheromone communications between the top and the bottom box. And then the bottom box would think it's queen, well, because they can't communicate.
right.
And,
So
then they'll start making a queen cell.
well, last year what I did is I did a demarree, right? And I started pulling all the queen cells off the top. It wasn't a true demarree because I didn't let it go. Most people would have smashed all the queen cells in the top, let the bees just continue to grow up. But I pulled it off, right? I took the queen cells out and started spreading the queen cells out to make splits from queen cells that they made. Like, I guess they would be emergency queen cells because they would think they were
Right.
queen,
Yeah.
which typically everybody says are not the best ones. But I've had pretty
Queens.
good luck, you know?
Queens are queens.
That's what I was just going to say. Queen of the queen.
And I usually have no
Yeah,
shortage.
the only problem I've seen in your videos is like
You
I
keep
told you.
You keep
I
going
said you
back
didn't
to
you,
the
you
video.
didn't put enough bees in that box, in that nuke or whatever that one time.
Oh yeah, the nuke when I did the split. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's again a learning curve, right? So this year
Well, I think that your demarree is that you need to let that demarree build up in population and be a strong hive that
right.
when you're pulling the brood out or the cat brood, maybe some, eggs or whatever you're trying to do and make a split out of that, it doesn't really, it doesn't hurt the donor hive in a negative way. It actually helps it out because you've got too many bees in there. And
Right.
you didn't have that scenario yet.
Well,
You were trying to,
the reason I didn't have that scenario is because I had already made splits off of all my colonies into those nukes, that the first set of nukes that didn't make it, right? So then it changed the whole dynamic. Well, crap. So the way I figured it, which I've said it before, but when I came out into spring with 12 that made it through the winter, if you do 10 3-frame splits, right, you're basically sacrificing 3 colonies in order to try to build 10 colonies at that point. So, because you're taking 30 frames, right? 30 frames of brood, larva, stores, and splitting them out. So so technically you could say I started with 9 after those first splits died. So that's the thing. I'm waiting longer this year. Now I'll probably be catching swarms out the trees, but
well, that's what I said. You said you had a cold snap and you learned when that cold snap was. That was what, February?
yeah,
So you need to be
People around here
closer. You need to be into the March area. Now, for me, March is too early for splits. For you, it's just right.
most people here say they start their splits Valentine's Day and later. But again, we had 75 on Wednesday, but Saturday it was snowing. So that kind of sets things back a little bit. But this year, hopefully it's better and things go better. And we'll see how it goes with I'm going to try to do queens this year, at least some, even if it's 30 walkways in 2 frames, I'm going to generate some queens.
Well,
So,
just try your hand at grafting. I mean, it's just not that big of a deal. I mean, everybody tries to make it out like it's something special, but
yeah, I think they overcomplicate it, and And when I say that, I mean, oh, you got to have this timing box. You got to have all these bees in there. You can't have this.
You don't need all. I mean,
For
if you're
6
a
days-
timing box is great. If you're like down the boys down south there where we go to them place, they have timing boxes, but they graft every day, 7 days a week for months on end because they want thousands and thousands of things. Where you, I mean, I was watching it. What's his name? Gus or something like that.
Gus Mitchell.
Gus Mitchell tonight, and he was saying, "Oh, about grafting, queens and whatever, and if you only want a few and all that." And I'm like, he was talking about timing boxes. He's at the upper end, of being a full-time beekeeper.
No, I think he is a full-time beekeeper.
Yeah, that's what I say though. But I take a nuke box and I take 10 frames of bees and I push it all down into 5 frames, where they're just over. I mean, they're out on the front of the box and everything.
Right.
And then it's queenless and completely queenless. And if you keep adding brood to that hive, 1 frame every, let's say 7 days, or 7 to 10 days, it will never go a laying worker because of the pheromones from the brood.
Mm-hmm.
And you can graft, just go ahead and graft 30 cells and put it in there. If you get 10, great. You got 10 cells, that made it, because, but you might get more, you might get less. You got plenty of boxes for mating boxes.
Oh yeah.
And the biggest thing, it's like the timing thing. I was always confused. They'll say, well, they hatch or they cap in 9 days. Well, no, they really, if you look at it my way, who cares about the first 3 days? That's an egg, 3.5 days.
Right.
So why even count that? The day you graft until the day they cap is 6 days. Count that out. So I graft on a Wednesday, and I time all this out. I graft on a Wednesday. I know my cells are going to be capped on Monday. Then they go in the incubator on Monday. They stay in the incubator for 5 days. So then they're ready. That gives me a day and a half, Sunday morning or Saturday night, Sunday morning, they're gonna hatch out of the cell. So that means I can tell people to get their act together and be at my place on Saturday morning, and they got a day and a half, as I call it, for that to get that cell in. They need to get it in that day, and then it'll hatch within a day, by the following day.
So why couldn't you just
But you only graft once. I mean, I'm not grafting every day. I graft once a week.
Yeah, but I could graft on a Sunday, right? Come
Yeah.
back the following Saturday. That's 6 days. They should be capped.
It'd be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It'll be Friday. Friday is the day they'll be capped. The day you graft is day 1.
So I come back Friday.
Yeah.
And I pull that frame out.
Yep.
And I take those queen cells and then put them in my incubator in roller cages. Now,
okay, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The following Wednesday, actually, the following set Friday is when they'll hatch, around Thursday night to Friday.
right. So if I graft that first time, I wait a week, right? Or Friday, come back Friday. I could wait till Saturday. It'd just be 1 day less or closer to hatching. They'll still be in there, right?
Yeah.
I can take those out, put them in the incubator, and when they hatch, as long as I know they're supposed to hatch in a day or so, as long as I have nukes ready or 2-frame mating nukes with the virgin cell and bees in them,
Yeah, you can do that. You can do all that, yeah.
Then they should be ready to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I mean, you can time it to where you can graft once a week. You'll have cells in an incubator. You'll have cells in the cell builder
And then
hive,
when you're right.
and then you'll have, by the time the cell builder is ready to be pulled to frames, you should be able to be put those queen cells in a 2-frame mating boxes or 5-frame, whatever type of mating boxes you want.
I'm
But
just trying to see. I'm thinking timing for me, right? Spring, when I need to start doing my queens, because I'm going to do my setups for my nukes different this year.
and then the other big part of it all is are the drones mature sexually?
Right.
It takes about, I just seen another
20,
thing.
23 days for them to be hatched, right? And then I don't
It's
know
about
how.
18. It's about 18 days after that, about 2 weeks.
So you're
14,
really,
between 14 and 18 days after they hatch, they'd be sexually mature.
so you're talking over a month from the time you start seeing drones till they're actually ready to go.
Somewhat, yeah.
And you could have 2 cycles of queen cells already by then if you started too soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could. And I mean,
You could always have other people with their drones out there flying around too.
yeah.
So what if I start?
Put a hive out there with a bunch of drone frames in there and saturate the area with drones.
There you go.
Here's what-
I've seen that on videos.
I've got some drone frames. I don't have a lot of drone frames, but last year my colonies produced a lot of drones.
Yeah.
At least I thought they did until I screwed them up by splitting too early.
Well, I mean, they all
learning
talk
thing.
about all these different things and techniques, and I kind of look at it this way: Did the queen cost you anything? No, except for a cup. A JZBZ cup.
But you're gaining knowledge
And
every time.
and your timing, and I'm like, well, if you got the weather right, and if you see drones a flying and whatever, there's enough probably mature drones around where they're not normally going to mate with your drones. They're going to mate with somebody else 3 miles away.
So, okay, let me introduce this question to you then.
You
Oh,
just
yes,
froze
and
up.
I just froze up. Yeah.
Yep. It always seems like on.
All right,
All right.
there you go, Bob. You're back.
So let's say in the spring,
Yeah.
if I do a dem array, okay, I let it get packed, I do the dem array. Then before I make that dem array, I go ahead and graft a bunch of cells and put that, when I take the one with the queen down to the bottom and I put those queen cells up top with the rest of the brood, they're going to come up and finish those out, right? Because they're going to think, hell, we don't have a queen.
Yeah, they're gonna keep. As long as you got enough bees upstairs to keep those cells warm.
Well, they're going
The problem I had was when I started out, and I did. I've only been doing it. This will be 3 years of doing queens. Is that I did an incubator because I found that they would make, if you left that frame in that cell builder after they cap for another week, they're going to build burr comb between the cells.
right.
Then you'd have to sit there with a darn X-Acto knife trying to cut that, and then you'll break the darn frames and all this stuff.
So
And-
go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So that's why I started with an incubator, which eliminates all that stuff.
So if I've got a thing like this, what I didn't understand with the conversation we were having last night with Mark saying about the worker or the attendant
Queen.
bees in the cage. So why, if this was in a colony in a roller cage, why would they not feed a virgin queen through the?
Yeah, that's called, what you're talking about is called banging.
Yeah, and I did that because I was ordering bulk queens and banking them, and that's what I had to go get.
He wasn't banking. He was living in an incubator.
Right.
Yeah. But you know something, Richard, let's see, who was it? The guy up in here in Pennsylvania. We were discussing this here a couple of weeks ago, and what he did was he had had the cage like you got it there vertical. He goes in, he comes in every so many hours, and the queen hatches out, or let's say multiple queens hatch out. He pulls the cup up, and he breaks off the cocoon, puts it back in, puts a piece of tape over it so it doesn't fall out. That's one of the things Spanky needs to figure out on how to make some kind of a what do you call it? Plug for that, you know. But a plug for that into that cage, though it don't fall out. It's, you know, just enough where you can, you know, it'll be snug. But anyway, he breaks that cocoon off, tapes it in so it doesn't fall out. And what he's learned is that he takes that cage and turns it horizontal and lays it on its side.
Right.
And then he feeds it. He'll take he'll take a syringe and put a droplet of honey on there, liquid honey. Or I have a little bear that's got crystallized honey. Take your finger and just kind of smear a little bit. The main thing you don't want to happen is the honey or food gets on that bee's wings, because they don't have tenants to lick or clean and all. And he said he could keep them in that incubator for like 5 to 6 days at most of the without dying.
I mean, Greg Burns brought me that queen and had it in his pocket for a week.
And it didn't have any tenants in it?
By the time they got here, they were
dead.
I mean, he was feeding. Yeah, I mean, he was putting honey on it to keep her alive.
Yeah. I mean, when I get those square cages, you know, with the screen on it, you know, the old wooden ones, you know, 3 holders, I'll always I'll put a little cup of water in like a little, you know, coffee cup or a coffee mug, and I'll dip my finger in there and bring it up, and my finger's just wet, and I'll just run it across that screen, and it has a hydrotension where the droplets go into that screen, and that queen will go up there and drink. And you do that twice a day. I've had a queen sit here on my desk for 3 or 4 days. You know, I mean, I get real antsy about that. I don't like that at all. I want them in the hive.
Well, I can't see not raising my own queens this year. After as many queens as I sold this year, I can't see not doing that.
Just graft off some queen or off of hives that the queen's doing really good for you. And then it's like I say in my videos and stuff on that part, is that you go in there and you find a frame, and you got the eggs on the outer, let's say the, you know, rainbow situation here. So you got eggs she's laid out here, and then you go in from them eggs and you'll see royal jelly, but with your regular glasses on, you can't see any larvae floating in there. You just see white snot, basically. That's the perfect, when you just see jelly and that's all you can see. There's a larvae in there, because they don't put royal jelly in a hole unless there's something, unless there's a larvae in there. And then you take that frame, that's the perfect frame, and put it on your easel, and I have magnification unit, and these glasses that I have here are reader glasses. They're not my normal. Yeah, those are I have bifocals that I wear during the day, and these are just reader glasses. They were actually made by my eye doctor, but I keep these on. I put the magnification unit on. You kind of have to marry that up. I think mine's like a 1.5 power, and then you got a little, you know, $3 LED light, and from the grocery store or the drugstore, and you just go in there and you take that light and look and shine it to where it'll make that larvae glisten in the light, and then you bring your Chinese grafting tool in there, and you just slide that tongue right down the side of the hole. What do you call it? What is that called? The hole,
Honeycomb.
not the cone, but the cell, the honey cell. Slide it down the wall of the cell, and that tongue will bend across the bottom of the cell and hit and bump against the other wall. And that's as far as, that's all you got to do. And what you're doing is you're not picking. And that was another thing, is like a lot of people talked about using it, before the Chinese grafting tool, you had the German grafting tool, and you literally had to hook the larvae, and which is to me more difficult. Some people like that, but with a Chinese grafting tool, you're not touching the larvae. You're picking up the royal jelly that happens to have a larvae floating on it, and then you just run over there and bump it, and then you just bring that pin right straight up out of the hole, and you'll see it with that magnification unit. You can see it laying on the end of that tip, and then when you transfer it into the JZBZ cup, you got the cup, the hole is here, and you kind of lay that tip down. You kind of like, instead of going straight down, you kind of go, your tip will be over towards the edge, and it's on the flat part of that cup. And then you I don't know, Kent Williams explained it where let's see, where's a pin here? You got this pin, and you hold it like a pin. Here's your plunger thing right here at the end with your finger here, and you've got the pin with your other fingers like that. And you bring that tongue you bring it like you're dragging it across the bottom, and you're pushing the plunger down at the same time. And the plunger kind of scoots that larvae off. About the time the tongue is going to come up off the bottom of that cup, that larvae is scooted off with that plunger into the middle of that cup. And
Right.
it sounds maybe a little more difficult, but it's, once you try it. We went down there to the in 2019, they had a thing called the Honey Show in Knoxville, and he was there, and we had a class. 5 minutes, and I was grafting, and I'm like, is this all there is to it? And he says, yeah. And it was like, what's the big secret? Nobody would never want to tell me how to do it up here, or invite me over and say, and I always had a hang up, like, well, they're always trying to do it in the middle of the day because they were retired. And I'm like, well, I got to wait and do it in the evening. And then I finally figured out that, yeah, you can do it after work. It's 5 o'clock in the evening. You got daylight. You go out there, you grab a frame. You might go out there the day before and hunt and look around. And you might, there's a good frame right there. Put a little black X on the back of the hive and where the position of that frame is. And then, you don't waste time hunting.
Well,
and all that.
Last year, I bought for resale and use of my own
100 queens,
over 100 queens, about 125 queens. So,
what did you average? How many queens per week did you sell?
well, I was selling 25 a week because I was going down there every week or every few days and buying 25 more queens.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at that, every time I was going down there, I was dropping $700. I mean, it's, all of a sudden I've spent $2,800 on queens. Actually more than that. So, because I bought something today, right?
You'd have made a few dollars.
I made a few dollars on it. But if I did that and raised my own queens, that's $2,800 in my bank account.
Well, now you got to remember that it will take you a month to get that queen mated.
Right.
So it's like myself this year, I was selling cells for the last 2 to 3 years. Now,
But my thing is, if you sell a cell, okay, so let's say I live in your town and I come to you and I say, Charlie, I need 5 cells, and you sell them to me for $10 a piece or whatever, and I pay you $50.
That's what they're going for, $10.
And then I come home. How am I keeping the warmth? I have to have those colonies ready to go right then to drop those cells in.
Exactly.
Before I come. And I have to literally stop in my yard and put those cells in as soon as I get back. Otherwise, I risk killing the cell. Like if I get cells from Cutic and they're an hour and a half away, now an hour and a half, like I didn't run the air conditioning in the truck. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do anything.
Put them in a cup. Did you put them in a cup with a warm?
They were in with the other queens that I had purchased when I went down.
Yeah, I mean, what I normally do is I go to McDonald's a lot. So every time I get a McDonald's cup, I save all them plastic cups. And then I use like they'll come here right out of the incubator, and I'll take a paper towel and wad it up and stick it in a cup, and it kind of makes those little cavities, and that way you can lay the cells, or kind of drop them in, keep them vertical, and they do pretty good. And that's another thing is that
but you're spending
when it comes to warmth, it's like, okay, you're grafting, it's 80 degrees in the summertime. I'll pull out the grafting frame that I want to graft out of. The first thing I do is I have a bee brush and I flick the bees off. Never shake that frame. Right. And then I have a hand towel and I drape the hand towel. The hand towel, kind of sort of keeps it warm. It keeps the bees off of it. That's the main thing. So I put it in my truck and I transport back to the house where I have my grafting stuff set up on the kitchen table. And then I put it in that frame and I do my grafting. And then I put my bars down on the frame, and then I have, I usually get a washcloth and I put water in it, but usually it's not warm enough. So I stick the darn thing. It's kind of wet, and I stick it in a microwave, and I microwave it for 20 seconds. Okay. Whatever it is, just to keep it warming the water up. Then I use that as a place marker when I'm grafting, because and it keeps the cells relatively warm. And then once I do all that, I put those cell bars back in the frame, nice cell bar frame, and I keep it upside down so they don't shake out. I put that hand towel over top of it just to sort of keep it warm. And, within 5 minutes, they're back into that cell builder hive. They're not as what I'm getting at is they're not as fragile as everybody makes out like they are. That's so
the queen cells aren't?
Depending on how old they are, but what I'm getting at as far as the heat goes, they're not as fragile as far as the grafted larvae and stuff. I mean,
once they're capped, they're not. It's not that bad.
When they're capped. Yes, when I'm going from my yard behind me here, and I go back to the house to the basement where my incubator is, I will hold that frame in midair while I'm driving, because I'm driving around the buildings. It's all, it's not, I could actually walk it, but I'll drive it because I'm lazy. But I drive it around and I make sure I don't bounce those cells. You don't want to hit them, or because they'll drop out of that larvae, or the larvae will drop out of that jelly, and then they're done. They're done for. You just lost 6 days worth of work. And then you put them in the incubator, and then the next several days is you don't really want to mess with them, because that's the kind of like a crucial time as far as bouncing them or hitting them or anything like that. But it's not that. I guess maybe I thought it was like, oh man, this is, be very highly cautious. Don't drop them. Don't bang them, or, and you don't do any of that, but it's not that.
My other option is to go down to Cutic and just buy a bunch of queen cells. I mean,
yeah.
But I want to do the grafting part of it, but I'm just like, I need to know if buying the queen cells and having them out of the incubator for an hour and a half or however long to get it home isn't going to kill the queen in the cell before they can hatch out.
Well, if you don't you have an egg incubator that you can hook up to a cigarette lighter type of thing?
No, I've got an egg incubator, but I can. I've got my what you call it that I use for my ProVap that I could hook to a cigarette lighter thing.
You talk about inverter.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I think you'll be all right. But reason I say is when we was piddling around the beginning of the year with our poor man's incubator, we was getting so overloaded with queen cells. That's what really made us try to figure out something to keep them things warm. But man, there were several times we was out there in the yard. The ambient temperature would be 86, 88 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be out in the yard 45 minutes an hour, maybe a couple hours before we would take them cells inside to put them in our poor man's incubator. And we was hatching queens left and right at a consistent 88 degrees.
Okay.
Now, are you talking about after their cells were in your cell builder?
No, sir. We were cutting queen cells
Oh,
off the foundation.
Okay.
We were trying to prevent swarming. We was just last year was astronomical for queen cells for some reason.
Well, I mean, what you were doing there, I would have cut the darn queen cells and put them and go over there on in a, let's say, a mating box or whatever, or a nuke or whatever.
Shook a bunch of bees in with them.
Yeah, well, I mean, have the frames in there with bees and everything, and they're queenless. And then I always take my finger and just make an indentation, and then you put that queen cell in there and just kind of just close it up just enough to hold that cell in position. And overnight, them bees will glue that thing in there and love it and keep it warm, and you're good. They'll keep it hot enough because if they have that one cell and there's plenty of bees, they'll cover it up. But put the cell close to where the brood, if there's brood on a frame, put it close to that brood because they'll keep the brood and all that.
Well, next year when I make my splits, I'm also gonna shake a ton of bees into Pro Nuke like I did this year. A bunch of nurse bees in there, and make sure I've got it. Basically, what I feel, if I feel like it's too crowded, there's probably enough. But I didn't do that when I started this year, so I think next year will be.
Main thing is let your hives build up good and strong, and then do your splits and manipulations and stuff like that.
If they start popping queen cells, they're strong enough, right? If they start making queen cells to swarm.
They're swarm cells, whatever. I mean, they're good. They're good. That's if you got a swarm cell, take it. Look at if you got 5 swarm cells and you got like 3 really nice ones. Everybody talks about you can't cut them out on foundation. Well, I have. You can take a knife and scrape that thing off there, and it won't. You be real careful and you won't break it, and then just take that same cell that you just cut off and put it in another hive that needs a queen. If you got multiple cells on one frame, or just if it's only one cell on that frame, just put the whole frame in there and don't worry with it. But
yeah, you can cut them off. I can grab you a handful of them right now that we cut off foundation. No problem. And they hatch.
Yeah. There's a lot of people will say, oh, you can't do that, but that's bull.
No, get down on the foundation. You can get them off there.
Yeah.
I saw Mr. Ed whittle them off of the frame with the wood still attached to them.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Better. Yeah.
There you go. It's not, they want to make it sound it's so difficult, but it isn't. It's just like Tim Mayer said about, like he was talking about the 80-degree weather, what I'm driving at. They're fragile, but they're not that fragile. You can cut them off with your penknife, or you can they don't need to be in, 93 degrees is what the incubator is set at, but 92, 93. But, if you got 85-degree, almost 90-degree weather, it's the same thing. Just
So what are you
you
finding?
can cut them out and put them in I'm sure, right? Is that what you did, Tim? Cut them out and put them in a little bowl or something until you got around to putting them in a hive that day.
Yes, we just made a pile with them. Then whatever we made as many splits as we can make. We done split out basically.
Yeah, right. You were making up, the bees to put them in with and all. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you might take a hand towel and cover them up, kind of keep them warm that way. But I mean, it's 85 plus degrees. You're fine.
I just set them on top of the lid. Boom,
I
set
mean,
them down.
yeah.
Down to the next one.
Yeah.
Are you finding that when you introduce your virgin queen cell or your queen cell to the colony, what sort of hatch rate are you getting? 100%, 80% hatch rate, or on your cells?
On what we're cutting out,
Mm-hmm.
I say 80% easy, man.
It's probably 90%. Yeah, the biggest thing is getting mated and getting them back into the hive. They might, they might get eaten by a bird or something like that when they're getting mated.
So I guess
We was taking virgins and putting them in. We do it because, like I say, we done split everything we could split, even just throwing virgins in. We make sure they knew they was queenless. Bam! A day or two later, we threw a virgin in. I'd say again, 80% of them hives, whether the queen, they had a good return. And
I mean, that's what I'm going to do this year is that was one of the things that they're talking about up in Pennsylvania is instead of putting queen cells in, they were hatching them in the incubator and they didn't have attendants in them. They just laid them cages sideways and made sure they had food. And I mean, when they come out of that cocoon, they want to eat right now. They're hungry. And and if they're close to, if they're going to hatch within so many hours, you're pretty much got a good guess. Now that's where you put a little bit of honey on the bottom, a little bit on the bottom of that cage, so they'll have something to go eat. And because you might be at work or something. And then he said lay them down on their sideways, and then he would take them out there and put them in just walk them right in. And that's what I did in one of my videos this past summer is I just walked that virgin right in because I thought she was a dud to begin with, but she wasn't. And she was a good queen. A couple weeks later, she was laying all kinds of eggs.
what we was doing with ours, we'll say the poor man's incubator is what we called it. Whenever we cut them cells off them foundation, I had brought another deep frame inside and we stuck them in an aquarium with a reptile lamp on them. Well, them cells, we had a little bit of wax on them to get drawn. So we would just take the queen cells, stick to the foundation nice and gently, but enough to where you knew it was going to hold to that foundation.
Right.
People call me crazy and all this, but I didn't put cages over them or nothing. We'd have 6, 8, 10 of them things lined up on that one frame.
Yeah.
Well, like you were saying earlier, I did pick up on a pattern. Them queens was going to hatch either late evening or nighttime, or first thing early in the mornings whenever we got up, usually about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd hit them with a light and you can see where she was chewing that cell out.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do, usually about the time we got ready to go to work, a couple hours, she done pretty well chewed herself out. So real quick, I would just take a regular old queen cage, stick her in a queen cage. I put maybe like a teardrop size of honey right in the very corner somewhere.
Right.
That fed her throughout the day till we got home. We feed her twice a day. And queens was living, 5 days was pushing it, but we had queens living for 5, virgin queens living for 5 days.
That's what my friend up here, Ed, that's what he did. It done exactly what you're talking about. It just put a teardrop full of honey maybe once or twice a day. And he held them things in the incubator for 5 days until he got them out into the hives and stuff. And now I don't know. Now, what was it, Mark? Yeah, Mark was talking about you had to have attendance, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm listening to these other guys. They don't seem to have that problem. I'm going to try it this year myself. I'm going to start doing the virgin thing. And that was one of the reasons, as far as like selling queens, is like this year I sold Guy 5 cells. Well, then they come back. Well, 3 of them didn't, they were duds. Well, I can't say that they weren't duds, and there's no proof. So, I mean, I'm going to back my product up. So I said, here's 3 more cells, no problem. And anyway,
So
this year I'm going to not do that. I'm not going to sell cells. I'm going to sell virgins at $20 a pop. And I said, there's your queen. You can see her. She's a nice big one or whatever. You can grade her, that kind of a thing. And then I says, but you better put it in the hive today. Walk it in. And, the thing's got to be queenless for a couple of days. And they should accept her right away, because, I mean, like I said in my video, I says she doesn't have a smell because she's not mated yet. They know she's a queen, but they know she's a virgin also. Who's that, you, Ed?
its phone getting blown
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, my
Okay.
phone's blown up.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's what I'm going to do this coming summer. Is I'm going to have them hatch out in the incubator, and then I'll have my 2-frame mating boxes out there. I'll take them virgins out there, and I'll just pop that queen cage open, let her walk on in there, and see what happens. The main thing about when you're raising your own queens, like I told Kent Williams, I said, I thanked him. I said, as soon as you learn how to raise your own queens, you're totally self-sustainable. You don't have to buy bees anymore. You don't really have to buy queens anymore. Now you'll buy some queens for genetics and stuff like that, bring in some outside genetics and stuff that you want to see whether you like. And if you like that queen, and, graft off of her.
Well, so if you were me, let's say you lived here
Yeah.
and you know what I've got for setup. You've seen it on videos. We've talked about it. Would you, before you did the spring splits, would you start the 2 frames before you went and did the 5 frames, or would you set up the 2 frames and then grow them and then put them into 5 frames as your nuke starters? Like, you understand my question?
What you're saying is start out with a 2-framer and then graduate it to a 5-framer.
Yeah. Or would you just make splits in the spring? I mean, because I could technically take 1 frame and extra out of each.
For me, like right behind me here, you can't, normally you see that whole line of hives. Well, the line of racks that are along the building, there's a lot of open spots. So what I'll do this spring is when I populate a 2-frame mating box, I'll put those mating boxes where I want them nukes to be. So I don't have to worry about moving them and, and all that stuff.
Right.
And then the thing that I do with my bees is, and some people, it stresses them out and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, it works. And that is, I will take a 2-frame mating box, and I have a little wooden block that I use as a gate, and I'll flip, and it's got a screw in it, and I just turn it down, and it closes the front off because it's only a 3/8 by 3/8 hole, and they got 2 ventilation holes in the bottom because it's a solid bottom. That I made these things myself. And then I have a migratory on top and a hole where I can put a pint jar and feed them. And I will put in, try to get some frames that are cat brood and some frames that we just, open larvae and stuff like that with plenty of bees, and I'll enclose them and lock them up, and I'll put with them I'll put a little pint jar of, usually it's Pro Sweet, because Pro Sweet, the other bees can't smell it and they won't kill these hives. And I'll leave them in there for a minimum of 3 days, locked up. They can't get out, if not 4 days. But by the fourth day, I'll open them up. They've lost their memory. And now, as far as they're concerned, that's their new home. They come out and they orientate, and then they go back to that hive. If you leave them, if you take those bees and put them over there on another rack someplace, they're gonna go back to the donor hive. They're not going to stay there. So that's the first thing I do. I set them up, get 4 days ahead of time, and set them hives up. And then all you got to do is, you got that virgin queen, go out there, take the lid off, let her walk in, put her back in, and she'll stay there for a week, harden up, get ready to fly, and her ovaries and all that stuff will mature, and then she'll go out and get mated and come back.
Well, I mean, I see a lot in the comment about people talking about virgin queens and everything. It's the thing.
Flower Street, I'm going to charge $20 for virgins, and I'm going to charge $40 for mated queen.
Well, but the thing is that most people won't come and get one queen. I mean, I've had 2, 3, 4, 5 queens at a time. People are coming to pick up.
Most of the time they come in for one queen.
You're getting
If
one.
they come in for cells, they'll come in for multiple cells. Now, yeah, I'm presuming if they come in for virgins, they're going to come in for multiple virgins.
Well, my thing is more about my own expansion, right? So this year I split everything like crazy, right? Next year I want to have my colonies that are strong. I want them to stay strong. That's what I want them to stay strong, and
you want them to build up and be strong, solid colonies.
So how
many colonies you got right now that are production?
23
production hives.
Mm-hmm.
Honey production. All right, you're going to have a lot of honey if everything goes well.
Yeah, I'm still expecting some losses. You never know what's going to happen, but my thing is that I want to be able to make splits off of those colonies without being detrimental to them when I make the splits, like I did this year.
Well, do the single brood chamber management thing where, like I say, are you running deeps, right?
Yes. Single deep.
You're going to do single deeps. You're going to keep her in the bottom, queen excluder and honey supers on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work. And then you go back in there in the springtime. It depends on how much she's rearing and everything. But let's say you go in there and you got 6 frames.
I've got that one colony that I showed on video the other day. I mean, she's still. I mean, I haven't looked in it because it's been cold the last few days, but she was still packing them in, still laying it up. You know what I mean? Right. Of course, she's probably slowed down.
Are you doing singles or are you doing deep?
That's a single. That's a single with a migratory lid on it. It's got 9 frames and a feeder in it, but the feeder doesn't have any feed in it right now.
Well, if you go in there, let's say here when it gets right down in your area there, and you got 6 frames of cap brood, I would go in there and I would pull 3 of those frames out with bees. Leave her, make sure she's still in there. Put in 3 empties. So she'll continue to lay. And by that time, I'd have a queen excluder on and I'd have at least one a honey super on top. That gives what you've done there is
stuff up.
They have to move it up because, and then I explain this as the mechanics of the single brood thing and on that video. That's the one video out of single brood chamber management that I have. There's 3 of them. That one's the best, I think. Is that she loads that box up with eggs. And then there is a little bit of honey and a little bit of pollen in there in her pantry, as you would call it, to feed all that. Well, the worker bees come in and they can't put any honey there because of the eggs. So they have to put everything upstairs into that honey super. And it used to be around here, oh, you have to bring the outer frames to the center for them to fill it. Well, when you do it in this way, you don't have to do that at all because they're trying to put it everywhere they can possibly put it. And that's
Right.
upstairs. You forced them to do that. And when you get it to the point where you got 8 frames of pretty much not capped, but filled supers of liquid, liquid honey there or nectar, then I under super. I read articles about where that doesn't really play a big difference and all that, but I always kind of look at it this way. If there's space right above their head, that's what they like to see. So I pull that super off, put an empty on the bottom, put the other one back on top, and then do it that way. And she'll just keep getting bigger and bigger. Now you can take those 3 frames of brood. Now you could start populating those 2 frame mating boxes if it's time to start grafting in your area. Or you can put a super or another brood box on top of with the honey supers in the middle and put those cat brood frames with the bees up on top.
Right.
And then just keep rotating the empties from the top of brood comb down to the bottom, pulling out half the amount of brood and put them back up. She'll never swarm because she's always laying, and you'll make you some honey. Believe me, you'll get some honey out of it. All right. Doing it that way. That's a honey making machine and all. And that's once you I did it 2 years ago and kind of got the gist of it, by just doing it. And it's like, man, this is the way to go. And,
well, I guess technically you could, even if you're under supering, you could just put a new super on and pull that whole super off if it's full.
Well, now it's another thing that some of my friends do is, since you got a honey house that's set up all the time, then what they normally, you could have I've had them hives behind me right there, and they're like skyscrapers. They're just really too tall.
Yeah, I've got some.
And I had to get up on the rack and try to, I'm up over top of my head, which is not comfortable for me. And what you need to do then is to go through those honey supers, keep them down lower, keep the stack lower, but go through the individual honey frames. And if you got a frame that's capped on both sides or, 90% capped, start pulling them frames out of that hive until you make up a 10 frame super of capped honey and then you might be harvesting honey as the bee season goes along, but you keeping your stack lower.
Right.
And it's more manageable for you. I don't have quite that. I don't have my honey. I guess I could do that, but that just, to me, it fills up my back porch, putting my extractor out there. And then you have that, you might not be extracting every week. Well, I don't like, there's an ant problem you can have, or even where, your extractor could get funky too. I don't particularly care for that idea.
Well, by the time we come back from hive life, got about a month before things start kicking it up here. A little over a month, and it'll start really picking up. So it's going to be interesting this year because it's going to take a new dynamic. I'm trying to, we like talking about beeconomics and making money with your bees, and
you can do it.
If I can cut out the middleman being Cutix this year, and not for nothing, but some of the queens that I got from them just were slow. They were just slow taking off.
Yeah, and that's with everything, I've had queens from other places, and some of them weren't worth a darn. But that's where I enjoy doing my own queens, and that's a fun. To me, it's new, but it's fun, and I always call it a game. You're playing a game between you and the bees, And then you might, if you get 90% acceptance rates, well, then to me, you've won the game.
Right.
And of course, there's other parts of the game where you have to, they'll hatch out, and then you got to get them mated and get back to that hive. But usually, in
So
the
you
spring,
start figuring out, I guess you start figuring out, okay, so if I graft 10 and I'm getting 80, so 8 are gonna cap and hatch out, but then maybe only 4 of those or 5 of those actually make it back mated. So then you know how many you have to graft to get the number.
I look at it this way: when you're going to go out there like springtime, I'd go ahead and do 2 bars, which is 30, right off the bat. Are you going to get 30? Most likely not. It's your first time. If you get half, 50% that are accepted, hey, it's, people say, oh, I only did 50. So what? Did you got 10 queens you didn't have before?
Yeah, but if you think about 10 queens, that's $400 for most people, or $450, dollars worth of queens that you didn't have to buy. So,
yeah, like one year, I think I did, I don't know, close to $1,000 in sales of queens.
But then, I've seen some comments on here. I think they were talking about people, liking to buy nukes over buying packages and stuff like that. But then you don't have to buy any of that. If you can make those queens, you don't have to buy any of that. You could take a couple frames of cap brood and some bees, put them in a box with the queen you just made, and next thing you got your own nuke.
Well, I mean, everybody. I mean, when it comes to making bees, worker bees and drones and stuff, that's easy. They do that for you. They're, if they're a good, strong hive and they're a healthy hive, they'll make more bees than you know what to do with. And all you got, the queen is the key. It's the key to self-sustainability. It reduces, like you said, $40 a hit. If you're buying 1 or 2 queens, your attitude changes. Your attitude gets to, when you know how to make your own queens, and you got queens in a 2-frame mating box, and you go out here to this 10-frame production hive, and she's kind of like ain't cutting it anymore, as far as laying eggs and pattern, and or she's the week in general is the hive in general is just weak. Mm-hmm. And she's over there, this new one's just going to town in 5 frames, and she's got 3 of them solid brood frames.
Right.
It's like, okay, you hive tool test this one here, and you bring that nuke over here, and you drop that one in, newspaper it in.
Hell, I didn't even newspaper some of them this year.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting at is the $40 equation doesn't come to your head anymore. It didn't say, used to, but before you had that queen over there and that nuke, it's like, well, let's say $35 to $40. Do I want to spend that, or do I want to pet this queen along and try to keep her going? Well, now you don't even think about that. You just say, yeah, get rid of her and put the new fresh girl in, and let's go.
I've also found out that a lot of people will do that, like you said, smash the queen, right? But my thing is, if what I've done in the past. Now, if I have a queen, that does change the equation. But I'll actually take that queen out and put her off to the side and let her, because she was probably a good queen at one time, is why she was in there, and she might just be coming to the end of her life. But if that's the case, then put her in a nuke, let her lay the nuke up, and then if she dies or they supersede her in the nuke, well, then her offspring is still good genetics. It's just that she's getting old.
Yeah. You can graft off of her or whatever, see what she produces.
So
I mean, that's what I'm saying. You got all these different options when you're able to make your own queens. And that's the goal, I think, of every independent beekeeper that wants to be self-sufficient. That should be your goal.
Right.
And Charlie, Charlie, like, someone that's new like myself, there's a couple times I thought I needed a queen, and it's like you have no resource one way or the other at that point. So it's like, what do you really do? It's like you
Well,
have
sometimes it's like it's certain. Well, it's like up here. You have a person, let's say in July and August, we have the dearth up here, and let's say they're a new beekeeper and they don't understand that they need to feed in order to keep that queen laying. And there's some people up here that won't feed and they don't really care whether she, continues to lay the rest of that summer. And the new beekeeper will not feed, and then there won't be any eggs. Oh, I'm queenless, and they're not really queenless. She shuts down, and that kind of thing. So that's a learning curve, and
well, another learning curve I figured out was like it happened right after treating the hive for mite treatments. And I was using Apivar, but some reason the queen shut down right after that for about 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, they will. Yeah, that's a known fact. They will shut down. That's part of, I think, like Apivar and Apriguard, with thymol, is especially that one. Benny and them all said, I haven't used it yet, but I do have a tub full of it, is that it will shut the queen down. And I think that's part of the mite treatment there, where there's no mites being hatched because there's no brood in the hive. And that's part of the learning curve. I mean, it's taken me a long time myself to learn all this stuff, and it's like now I know a lot of it. I'm like, why didn't I know this 10 years ago? But nobody, a lot of it for me, I'm a visual learner. I got to do it. And then it makes sense. It's just like the Demery thing. I'm going to try that this year and see how that goes. And I got to talk to, there's a couple different ways. And I got one person in my club that she does it. And I'm going to pick her brain, maybe even go down there and help her a little bit to see what she does. But it
the older beekeepers don't like to give out the secrets.
Well, it just
well, the main thing is, I mean,
I find this is that you have the motivation and I've got the motivation, and Tim and everybody here, it seems to be, where they want to advance their skills. They want to try grafting or queen rearing of some form, and they learn, and they want to learn how to make nice splits, maybe sell a few nukes, get some money to sell a couple nukes there so you can pay for that sugar or whatever you need to, some of the supplies and stuff, But then there's other people up where I'm at that they want 4 hives. They don't really want nukes. And there's no desire to expand their knowledge and become self-sustained completely. They don't want to do queens, and they don't want to really do. They want 4 honey hives and no nukes or anything like that. And then they back themselves in a corner where like we've experienced, like I've experienced this fall. I had 4 hives there that I needed queens. What am I going to do? Well, if I didn't happen to have those nukes, I had 20 some nukes. I pulled 4 nukes out and dropped them in there. Now I think I got my honey hives are viable, but that's, I call it, nukes are insurance policies,
right.
But there's those folks out there that, they don't want to grow that big. They want to keep it a certain size, or they'll get up to about 10 or 12, about like Brian and Castle Highs, he grew, he went from small to 12, I think 11 or 12 this year going into the winter. And
well, it wasn't 2 years ago that he lost every single colony he had.
Yeah, I don't know exactly any of the backstory of that, whether he treated or he didn't understand nutrition. And there's a lot. It's like the one club I belong to. We have a Friday night beach chat. Like last night, I was on beach. They call it beach chat, and then you guys popped in, and I'm like, I'm out of here because there was so much beginner stuff, and they complain about having too many hives. We're trying to get rid of them or something like that, and then or. Oh, I know what it was. 2 Fridays ago, this one lady said, yeah, she said, I lost so many hives, a swarm or whatever it was, because she went on vacation in August. And I'm like, and they said, we ought to set up a thing where somebody else will come and look after their hive while they're on vacation. I'm like, why don't you just stay home? You're a farmer now. I mean, it's like myself. July, August, September, I'm out there, always was out there
go right on ahead and leave.
Yeah, I'm out there baling hay and everything else. And I mean, in August, I'm out there. If I got spotted lanternfly this year, but usually I'm out there feeding. And you don't just pack up and go. And to me, August is the hottest darn month anyway. Why would you want to go on vacation that week?
To get away from the heat.
Where are you going to go to get away from the heat?
Somewhere further.
Alaska.
It's like I did have some relatives down there next to you, Spanky, down there in Hickory, and it gets hot down there just as well as it does up here, and but we always went on vacation either early spring or late fall because it was cool and the work was done. The farming was over with. But that's, I'm one of a few people that do that because, I grew up on a farm where most people are, they're going to go around here. It's always Ocean City, Maryland. They go over to the Atlantic Ocean and spend a week. And I'm like, what are you going to do over there for a week? About 2 or 3 days, I'm done.
I got a question for y'all.
Yeah.
I know none of us, to my knowledge, do artificial insemination. What's the price range on those queens? Does anybody know?
To buy an AI queen?
Yeah, to buy an AI queen.
The last time, New River Honeybees, he does them out in West Virginia. I'm gonna say around $200 to $300, and he's always sold out. I remember one time it was New Year's Eve and he opened up the sales at midnight right after New Year's. And within an hour or two, he was sold out, for so many graftings and stuff and all. But he has a lot of, he's got them expensive queens, where he's buying Sue Kobe and all those different, ones that are coming from them colleges and all. And that's his big thing is just queens. That's all he does. And all, but he's had some back. I was on his site and he had a back operation here last year and that kind of put him out of business there for a while, I think. And then he had a bear attack. And stuff like that, where he had them little, styrofoam mini hives, and he had along a tree line, and I forget how many mating boxes were out there. Let's say a couple hundred, and bears got into them, tore them all to hell, and all. And then he's done some interesting things where he had a shed. It was kind of like those, like the one that you're going to have at Hive Life, with the bee boxes in that trailer.
Right.
Well, he had a shed there at his house. Now he's in West Virginia, and it's cold. He's probably colder than I am. As far as, the climate and how long it takes to get warm up there. And he had it sitting where the hives were in this shed, like 4 or 5 of them. And it was heated and where he could, he was speeding up the grafting thing and the drone thing earlier on or something like that. I forget it was, I was reading about. But now if you're looking about like are you looking for price on bees or the equipment and stuff?
No, I've looked into it. It's just I know we like talking about that kind of stuff, and that's something we hadn't talked
Yeah,
about.
he has a New River honeybees, and he has some videos out. He was doing some teaching, and it's about what you're up against financially if you wanted to get into that. And it was like, I'm going to say it starts out at a minimum at the time that video was made was $2,000. That's the minimum you're going to get by with. And it goes all the way up to say $10,000.
Yeah, your most expensive thing, if you go and buy the kit off of Etsy, it's going to be a microscope unless you can find a cheaper one. You can get the stand and everything off of Etsy for like $200, the grafting set. Somebody's 3D printed it, and they've actually took and welded the grafting tools on like 3mm rods, and you sit there and work it. And it's
That's
on
where you open up the vagina and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now see, he
was
was talking about he had a microscope, and he got another one, and where he had one with the two I guess you call it binocular eye sights, and then this thing also was hooked to the computer screen, and he said the second one he bought made sure that you could look through the eye sights and look at the screen at the same time, where the other one you had to switch back and forth, which was he didn't like. He's got like what's that stuff called that where you put semen in those tanks, liquid oxygen or no liquid
CO2.
Nitrogen.
No, they use CO2 to put the queens to sleep.
No, this is talking about the semen.
Well, sperm storage, it would be nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen. He has several liquid nitrogen tanks. And then what he does is he's also a 3D printer too, Spanky, this guy. And he printed up these drone catching cages where he made it to where he could use his thumb to open up the drawer or the door. And then he put in a queen excluder on the front of the hive, and he'd go out there in the evening. And then of course the drones were coming back, and then he would go down there and pick them up and put them in this cage. And he would pick up 300 drones. Now he's picking up the drones from this specific hive, which has some type of breeder queen in it, to get that semen from that type of drone. He knows where the semen's coming from this type of queen. Let's say it's a sassafras or something of that nature. And then he takes that into his, he showed a lot of things when he go in there and when he's prepping that thing, that machine and all, it's like you're walking into an operating room in a hospital. He wipes the countertops down. He puts fluid in there to sanitize the lines, and then washes it out with saline. And they did a lot of prep work. It was quite educational. You got an eye opener there for me, at least for me. And anyway, he would, squeeze the drone, and then it would pop out, and you'd have that little droplet on there. And he would suck up that semen and do that to 300 of them, and then make these semen tubes, I guess is what it was. And then he would label it, store it in them nitrogen tanks, and then thaw it out, I guess you would call it, and use it in artificial insemination. And the last time I was listening to him on some of his videos, and that's been a year ago or more, he was commenting the fact that he was using semen that was been in there 6 months or a year old, and it actually the queen was, did get mated of the age of that semen and all. And he was, he's really it's intense,
Yeah, because
about all
I've
this.
not done any artificial insemination, but I've done like pepper crossing. I've done plant crossing, and some of the different plant pollens, the temperatures you have to store them at is insane, like -120. You can't just stick them in a normal freezer; they'll still go bad.
Yeah. But I mean, he had, he had a video where he kind of, scanned his operating room, as I call it, and he had several of those nitrogen jugs where they had the semen, where you bring it up out of there with a rod and all that stuff. And check him out. It's called New River Honeybees, and I think he's got like about 5 or 6 lines of bees, and it depends on, he had some pricing at one time where an AI queen was one price and a open mated queen, even though it came from one of them lineages that he had, it was open mated. It was a different, a cheaper price. And,
But God, with those queens, I haven't had an expensive queen like that. To be honest,
and you have to introduce her when she's an AI queen. From what I've been not much reading, but what I've heard or listened to these guys, you have to introduce her a certain way, like a push-in cage, and because they don't seem to smell like a normal queen.
well, you also don't want her to get whacked after you just spend a bunch of money on her.
One guy I heard said he used the little mini mating nukes on them, and about 1 or 2 days after he had inseminated them, he would pull her and he would put her back to sleep, anesthetize her. Something about the CO2 putting her back to sleep really got her into. It simulated her going out and flying a mating flight, and really got her to start laying.
Yeah, I know that if they're artificially inseminated, they don't seem to know that they have been mated.
But here's the question: is it are they that much better? I mean, do they do that much
well,
better?
that depends. It depends. It's kind of like crossing anything. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to selectively breed, or are you just wanting a survivor stock?
Well,
Well,
but
you might be able to find out some way too by doing this too. You have where some of that lineage is coming from. It's just not open mated, where you don't know what she's breeding with.
right, the first generation, you understand that. But if you're not artificially insemination, all of her stock is going to be mated with whatever. And even that's why I kind of laugh to myself, because I've done it myself, right? So like Saskatraz, I'm like, oh, this is the best. This few years ago when they were all the rage, everybody wants Saskatraz queens. So I dial up Oliveras and I order them. They come from California. I put her in. They did horrifically down here in the heat. Terrible.
I had a great time with them up here.
And I've had some people in North Carolina that have had good luck with them too. But down here, they just didn't do good,
It seemed like now carnies are the.
And so I've got carnies and Italians, but once they go out and fly, you can't control what the drones are that they're mating with, right?
Them cutic queens are kind of on the dark side.
Yeah.
I've got them, and then I've grafted off of them, and their daughters are all black like the original ones, and they're nice big ones, I mean, but you're right, it's like beef cattle. If you buy a purebred whatever, let's say a bull or whatever, that you can control the cow that's being bred
with because you're putting one bull in there with your heifers and he's taking care of business.
And you can control that and keep the lineage just right and stuff like that, and that's all with most farm animals and stuff. But with bees, there's, once, like you say, once you get past the first generation, you don't know what you got. Unless you saturate the area with certain, have drone hives around the area.
Right.
And they do all that kind of stuff, in these big queen operations.
Well, I've seen it so much where people say, well, these queens are bred for this. These queens, like Cutic, prime example. They make a shit ton of nukes and queens every year. But this, he's saying they're canines, they're beetle resistant, mite resistant, and I'm calling bullshit on all of it because once you bring them back, if they're not mated, or let's say they're mated and they get rejected, I had this happen where they lay a small pattern and then the colony kills them, and then they make queens out of that. Right after that point, they're mated with whatever, and that new queen comes back, may have a slight tendency towards doing that, but the most part, what I find is it's bullshit. Is that they still get mites, they still get beetles, and that's anyone. Everyone's like, oh, these are Varroa bullshit. They're not Varroa resistant. You can go in that colony and do a shake, and you're going to find mites, and So I just find it hard to believe. It's almost like people say this and that and sucker us in, and we pay more money for it or whatever, and it's no better than the one that I just raised in my backyard, that went out and made it on its own and came back. I mean, it's either going to live or it's going to die, and that's like the natural selection of things, right?
Now, there was a friend of mine was reading an article or something, and it kind of it was interesting where I think it was down in Georgia, the bee lab in Georgia. I forget what the guy's name, the one professor down there, Tardif or something. But anyway, what it amounted to was they were talking about, your southern packages versus the local bees, and like you say, the queens and stuff. And they were, I don't know whether they were figuring this out or whether it's a hypothesis or whatever it was, but what it amounted to was that they were thinking that the bees that are living in the South, those bees know where these certain plants are that say they use to help them. It's like going to their local drugstore when they're sick.
Right.
They know what plants in the area they can utilize, whether it be pollen or nectar or sap or something from it, in order to eat that stuff, in order to help them get well, if they're sick. Whereas you take that same group of bees and you move them 400 miles up the road, well, they're come to a new location and they don't know the plants in this area, and they don't know where to find the medicine that they need to help them, survive a problem. And that was something that they were looking into.
Well,
Charlie, they also mentioned the whole local queens could be immune to the local viruses and stuff in the area the other day. And that's kind of what I was wondering about on the AI, is not so much in terms of, oh, well, this strain is better because we done AI, but kind of in the sense of, well, somebody could set up a local thing and like, well, this is Saskatraz, but it's been bred with your local stock that's been, we can trace this stock back to 1700s, South Carolina stock of bees, this,
right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you could literally.
Yeah. I mean, you got, like you say, in that AI queen, you've got that certain genetic to start with that they've promoted, let's say, honey producer or whatever, but then you mix it with the local gene stock, which possibly, enhances it, on a positive note. And I mean, now think about like what Cayman Reynolds said. He kept saying he bought all these different queens over the years. And he had the best results when he started making his own queens and just doing his own, and then he took his own queens and, of course he's got 300 hives, let's say. And out of the 300, he found, let's say 20 queens that were exceptional. And then he would graft out of those 20 exceptional queens. So in turn, he is producing his own line of quality queens for himself. And that's why he has good production, because he keeps looking at the quality of production in those hives and who's good, who's bad, and stuff like that. And I think that's really where the answer's at.
Well, see, I kind of follow DC's comment here. Is in the long term, it is kind of a losing proposition when you're doing that stuff, because unless you're artificially inseminating, you're not controlling the drone population, because when they go out on that mating flight, they're not just picking the bees they see on the block in your apiary. Now they may, in my situation, they're probably picking ones that I lost from years past in swarms that are in, have bred and reproduced in nature, but they're picking whatever drones are in the mating area.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I would say here they're probably mostly my genetics, but I don't know that to be the case 100%.
Well, like you say, you got 20. Let's say you go through the winter with 25 hives, and you find, let's say, 5 hives that are really exceptional queens. Those are the ones you would graft off of,
right?
And make and like you say, they're not really going to use the drones out of those hives. They're going to mate with somebody, your neighbor down the road that And but it's more of a crapshoot, It's like, okay, they're going to go and mate whatever drone, come back, and those 20 queens that you just grafted that are mated now, maybe half of them will be exceptional and the other half ain't. That's just kind of, I think that's just what really boils down to.
Right. But if you look at genetics, not just in bees, but in anything, right? Yeah. So, prime example, let's say we were breeding for red hair. My sister has red hair. My uncle on my dad's side had red hair. But not every single bee or every single person in our family has red hair. So it's like, if you're trying to breed for red hair, just because your queen has that genetic doesn't mean that genetic's getting passed down to her bees, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's still
Bob, we've got hundreds of years of selective breeding, and we know all about recessive traits and the different techniques of trying to get those to express themselves continuously.
Okay, if we knew so much about that, then how come we still have bees that aren't Varroa resistant? And
resistance. There's a difference between resistance and eradication.
Well, yeah, I understand that. So they're going to get the mites.
A hive and still seeing Varroa mites.
Right, you're still going to see them, but it's whether or not they actually infect and deform wing virus and stuff like that.
That's not Varroa resistance. That's a virus. That's something.
That's
different.
Varroa tolerance.
That's virus resistance, not Varroa resistance.
Well, but when you get a VSH, that's Varroa specific hygienic, right?
Bubonic plague. It's like you could be resistant to the flea, but not the plague.
Right. But
pack out.
If we're spending
what you gonna do, Ed?
For a queen or $1,500,
pack out the CRISPR 9.
is that that there's no guarantee that her bees are going to be more resistant than any other bee in the area. And if they're not, how would you know? You get a certain percentage that are dying.
Well, you have to monitor them.
Well, yeah, but then are you going through all your dead bees and saying, okay, this one died because of Varroa, and when it dies, is the Varroa still on it, or did that one just die because it was old, or did that one die because
Well, I wouldn't say
whatever?
that you would monitor the dead bees. I would say you would monitor the amount of Varroa mites per bees. The same way you monitor for
Right, but
doing
then
your
how do you
hive
know if it's
treatment.
Varroa tolerant or Varroa resistant? Because you just said in your own words that
Well, you have to look at the hive if it's tolerant. Depending if it's still a great production hive, but there's a lot of Varroa in there, then it sounds like to me, your observation would be that hive would be tolerant.
right. So then does it matter that there's Varroa if they're tolerant?
No, not really.
Because there's a
Well,
difference
probably.
between having mites that are not passing on bad viruses and are just passing on benign viruses versus having mites that are passing on
But
deformed
that's a
wing
mite
virus.
thing, not a bee thing, right?
Yeah, but that's not Varroa resistance. That's a virus resistance.
Okay, so I mean, it's like penicillin for the bees. I get that. I mean, it
Yeah, it's
or a
different.
flu shot for the bees, right? You put the virus in them, and then they're becoming immune. I get that, but it's just, I mean, keep in mind, my background is pharmaceuticals. We can have this debate all night, y'all, all night.
I think the main thing that what we need to get out of this talk tonight is the fact that I think that if you're going to do your own grafting, your own queens, you graft from your best hives, and you just keep doing that like Cayman did, and you will over time develop a nice bunch of hives that are good producers and stuff like that, and they survive very well. And that's about all you can do at our level.
Right. I mean, I guess where I was going with it is more about a lot of
What all
a lot
these here.
even Cutic, right? Cutic, I bought 85 queens from them this year. And out of those 85, he showed me a video. Look, they're taking the Varroa mite off of the larva and chopping it up. That's great. You caught that on film. That's awesome. I understand that's a hygienic trait. That's great. But that doesn't mean that any of his other colonies are doing that same thing, right?
Well, it's like I bought a queen one night. I was up in Westchester, PA, and I got a queen out of their I forget what university it was. It was an ankle biter, and it was nothing special about it. At least I didn't see where it was all that great.
Well, and I guess that's what it comes down to. When you're looking in your colonies, can you visibly tell a difference between one that is $1,000 queen or a $40 queen, or one that you made yourself? Right, or one that you just made yourself.
Not really. I don't think so. I don't have that. I don't have that expertise.
I could tell the difference because the queen kept flying away from the expensive one I bought.
But
how much was that queen's bank?
That was an expensive queen, but I couldn't buy from anybody else. That was the end of the season, and that was
bro, you're 2.5 hours.
How much?
That was a $100 queen. That was the only person that had them. That was the end of the season. 3 tries to get it here alive.
Well, see,
and you know what it did? I did what everybody said. That they wouldn't chew her out of the cage because for whatever reason they used custom cages with candy that about that thick, really thick to eat through. The bees didn't want to chew all the way through it. Popped it out. Put it down, kept your hand around. What does she do? Flies right out. She'd come back, but every time that I would pull a frame out for her on it, she'd fly away.
Oh.
What I typically do at that point is I just crack it open and put the lid right back on and let her walk. Well, I usually have a shim on it, but that lets her just walk out at her own pace. And if they, after she's been in there for a while, but I've had that happen.
That was
I opened them up and watch them fly up. I was like, damn it, that was $40 just flew in the tree.
That was a Caucasian queen. I had never messed with one of them. I called them up and I said, is there anything different for these Caucasian queens? I said, that thing just flew off. He's like, no. I was like, they just flew off.
Well, I'm only a few hours from you. You can drive down here and get.
Yeah,
clean.
whenever gas was like $5 a gallon, you know, just a few hours, $5 a gallon.
What are you driving? A tank? I mean, what kind of car do you have?
Well, what are you driving? An
I got
electric
an
vehicle?
F-150. I got an F-150 and a Fiat, so I can get the economical way to go. So that it's just a matter of, I guess it's past my best. It's midnight.
Yeah.
Wait, Spanky getting a DV so he can come down and get Queens. But it's just a again, I mean it's a lot. We could talk about this all night. We have talked about it all night. But you got a Tahoe? Now I know why. You got like the you got to bring a gas station with you when you go on the road.
I think Bert went and pulled out the gas station.
But yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess, growing at whatever pace you can, and regulating. We do talk about it all night. That is true. But okay. But it's a matter of growing at whatever pace you're comfortable at, right? And
It's either growing or growing towards a goal for what you're trying to do.
And figuring out what that goal is ahead of time. That's
whether you want to just be honey production or nuke production or queen production.
That's it. Set the goal, then grow.
What's that, Tim?
Set the goal, then grow.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a brand new beekeeper, you're pretty much, it's right off out the gate, you're going to be a honey producer is what you're trying to go for. And then after that, you learn about the business and what you can, it's not so much a business or a situation where, for me, it's like, okay, can I get the bees to pay for themselves, and pay for all the input costs? And I've done that. And now they make me a little bit of money. And I mean, nothing to make a living off of, but, they've always paid for the tools that I need. And
they've earned their own keep.
Yeah. And that's good,
Right.
So, and then, overall, the whole big thing for me is this friendship that we've developed here. That's really the most important thing that I've found with this bee keepers. And of course, YouTube and the internet has made it even better for me.
We've been going about almost 3 hours. We still have 19 people watching. So that's
well, the bees seem to be the conduit to all the rest of it,
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody has basic in common, and that's where everything stems from.
I even thought about doing a nuke swap, right? So let's say I don't know.
You ain't getting my nuke.
Huh?
You ain't getting my nuke.
No, I'm just saying that.
I already know where it's going.
No, as you got a bunch of colonies, and you want to introduce new genetics, instead of going to buy a nuke, then I could say, hey, Charlie, if Charlie was close by, I could say, hey, Charlie, let's swap 2 nukes. I'll give you 2 nukes. You give me 2 nukes.
See, that sounds like fun.
And then my genetics are being introduced to his yard, and then his genetics are being introduced into my yard, and it hadn't cost us anything, and we get to hang out for a little while.
Like a queen swap.
Yeah,
we could do that. Yeah, queen swap would be cool.
But apparently, according to the United States Postal Service website, you have to have your yard inspected if you're shipping queens.
Really?
Yeah, because I went and looked because I was like, oh, what if I want to give some queens to somebody, but they drive.
Your state doesn't even inspect your colonies like my state does.
I do know that in Maryland, if I want to sell queens over the state line, or not queens, but nukes over the state line, I have to have I have to get inspected.
Well,
That's what
but
it
if they
says
drive to
online.
your location, you're not sending them or mailing them. They're coming to get them.
Yeah, but as long as they cross the state line, they
But
have
what
to
if
be.
you don't know that? What if you plead? What if they come in and say, "Hey, I need 2 nukes." You're like, "All right, well, here's your 2 nukes," and then they take them to Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Or,
well, that's true. That's true. I mean, what it amounts to is they're looking at foul brood, and because you have comb, that's their concern. Now, if like a package doesn't have any wax in there, so there's
Uh,
they're not as
you-
bad.
Donnie said, "Not if you ship them in a broccoli box."
Hope they don't sit for 4 days and wind up dead.
Right.
But
But anyway, guys,
yeah, I mean, I don't think you say you have to get inspected for queens, Spangy.
That's what it said on their
on the
website.
USPS site.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
Let's see. I just got my license here. Where's it at? That's a summons.
Well, gentlemen, I think I'm fixing to skin it. Call it even.
There it is.
Yeah, we're getting ready to get off here in a minute too. All
All
right,
right, bud.
Tim, we appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Y'all take it easy.
We'll see you later. Good night.
Same to y'all, man.
Don't be late for church in the morning now.
Oh, we won't.
With bees.
No.
All right,
All
man.
Bye-bye.
So you find it?
Yeah, it just says here it asked me whether I bought package bees, nukes, and or queens out of state, where I bought it from, what state, and what items did I buy.
Now you guys come down here to Georgia every year, so it's like
There's, I think that the packages, I do know that Hardeman's will give you inspection stickers for those bees that they've been inspected by their Georgia inspectors. And I do know if you transport bees, like if you want to go to almonds, you have to have those bees inspected here in this state. And then that bee inspector has to send a certificate of origin inspection or whatever to the bee inspector in California someplace and all that stuff. I mean, they try to regulate it per se as far as diseases and stuff like that.
does Hardeman's even have a website?
Yeah. I believe. Well, I don't know about a website. I know they're in American Bee Journal.
I see different things. I saw Bee Source or something on here.
I don't know whether they have a website or not. I don't think so.
Mount Vernon, Georgia.
Yeah, that's it.
Napiers. But that's on a different site too. That's not even like their website.
They probably don't have a website.
How do you not have a website nowadays?
Well, you know. The thing of it is, when you buy bees from them, you got to pre-order ahead of time.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to get in with you and Lloyd on that so I can just go down with you. You take y'all's and I'll take mine. But I need a good price, man. I ain't trying to pay no retail price that he's charging his people probably.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on how many.
I don't even know if I need to do that this year.
Well, that's just it. You know. It sounded like to me you're on your way as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why you wouldn't buy anything.
No.
All right, here's Hardeman's. What do you want to know? 20. That's
Do they have pricing in there?
yeah. You're looking for Italian queen packages?
Yep. How much is the
3-pound package for 1 through 9's 103.75. 10 to 24 is 101.75. if you got over 100 of them, they'd be 97, 70. Well, let's say $98.
$100 either way. You might as well just average $100.
Yeah, basically $100.
So you make 35. Well, down here you make about $35 per package buying them at $100.
Yeah, about 135. 35 or $40 a piece. Russians are about the same price, a little bit more money, not much. They're about $3 more from 1 to 9 packages. Queens, Italians, 1 to 9 are $23.75. 25 and up is $22 a piece.
Did you just say free swarm rustler? That's blasphemous.
Hey, so I found where they've got it. I found it. If you want me to post it in the
I'll add it in.
What is it?
so it's very, let's see.
Vague, probably like everything else the government
Yeah,
does.
so, and the reason why, so I'll read it to you. It basically, honeybees and queen honeybees must be free of disease as required under federal and state regulations. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Well, they're alive, so they're disease free.
How do you prove that without having them inspected by a state inspector?
And the thing of it is how's the state inspector even going to know it either? I mean, you figure a queen bee, you'd have to have a laboratory type of thing,
So it could be something where it could be something where you follow the requirements and they just don't say nothing to you at the post office.
If they're like my post office workers down here, they don't care. They don't
care.
Whenever I sent that stuff off the field, they saw I had my logo on the label, and they was like, "You're not trying to send bees, are you?" And I went, "I'm not stupid."
Well, first of all, you say, how long do you think bees live in a box to go to Ireland, Northern Ireland?
Trying to end up in prison sending bees to another foreign country.
And a Texas beekeeper. You just get in.
But yeah, so I mean that's kind of the thing is I would have to have a list for packages to sell packages before I would go do it, because I don't need packages really at this point. I can make my own packages.
Well, you might would want the package container to put your own packages together.
Hey, I do recycle. That's no lie about that. Pro nukes, if I bought a nuke and I have a pro nuke, that's the pro nuke they're getting. Of course I clean it out first, but
well, you're not a savage.
Yeah, we gotta clean it out a bit. But yeah, I recycle. And my mentor, when he sells a nuke, it's like, you better bring your equipment, because you're not getting my equipment, and I'm not buying $20 pro nukes to put them in. So bring your box, and we'll put them in there, and you can carry them home. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, for you, Bob, I would concentrate on see what you get in the springtime and build them hives up, and if you need to, go ahead and split them.
Well, I split them right in February this year, so I was going to wait 2 to 3 more weeks, like first week in March. Give them another brood cycle in the box before I started doing any splits, and then
go into the main donor hives and see how strong they are. Don't weaken them down right from the get-go.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. When I was talking about splitting to nukes or splitting to 2 framers first, I was thinking about just taking 1 frame out, eggs, brood, and larva, putting them in, and then shaking extra bees in with them in a 2 framer and let them make queens that way as well. So there's a couple thought processes I had going on.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
You just have to, just make sure that the weather's right, and
I got a whole 2.5 months before I got to figure that out.
Yeah, well, just take it slow.
Yep. Anyway, guys, I think it's 12.
Yeah,
3 hours in.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys as usual. We'll get.
I'm
into
I'm glad that you came on tonight. Wasn't nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I'll look, and if I see somebody else's live, I won't go. I'll watch their.
Yeah, but it's like Gus. It's like Gus Mitchell. He gets on there by himself and he's just reading the questions off the ticker tape over here. And I'm like, that's got. I don't know. I just wouldn't do it that way. Why don't you invite the people that are wanting to talk to you on like you do, and it just makes things so much easier.
There you go. Let's see who snipes the chat. Oh, look at that. Texas, everybody just pow, pow, pow. Shots from everywhere. Never stood a chance. Oh, we had a sex chat site come on, man. And Texas Beekeeper, Spanky, Flower Street, Texas Beekeeper hit another. Man, y'all was just like sniping them. They didn't last in there 20 seconds. They were gone. That's awesome.
All right. Well, it's like you say, it's almost 12:30 here. So,
all right, guys.
Matt, we'll see you tomorrow night, right?
Possibly.
What the heck, you know?
So if we come back tomorrow night, everybody have questions, stuff we can talk about. I enjoy talking about everything, but most people tune in for the beekeeping side of it because it is a beekeeping chat. But sometimes we go down rabbit holes on different things. And if you guys want a specific rabbit hole gone down, then have a question. Have something.
Watch some more Boss Beak.
Watch some more, Boss Beak videos. Hey, that's how it started. Somebody asked about a beekeeping simulator game, DC, I think, and then that's where we went. So, anyway, guys, y'all have a good evening. Everybody, thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow night.
Good night.
Yeah.